Chapter 2362. Annihilate half-step void sky, ninth step in a remote corner of the restaurant. Mayuja picked up his wine cup and drained it in one gulp. His gaze fell on Zhuowen with great interest. When Zhuowen decided to face the half-step void sky ninth step old man alone, Mayuja was also a little surprised. Although Zhuowen had grasped the power of space-time law, the gap between him and a half-step void sky ninth step was much greater than a half-step void sky eighth step peak. Ma Yujie wasn't surprised that Zhuowen could instantly kill two half-step void sky eighth step powerhouses. After all, Ma Yujie had experienced Zhuowen's strength before. However, it wouldn't be easy to kill this half-step void sky ninth step old man in front of him. He might even have to pay a price. Ma Yujie didn't say anything. He sat in the corner of the restaurant and silently watched the battle that was about to happen. "You will pay for what you've done." The old man floated in the air. He suddenly clenched his hands, and two long black sabers appeared in his hands. Powerful divine power circulated on the surface of each saber. Obviously, they weren't ordinary divine tools. Boom! The old man held the sabers in his hands. Suddenly, two saber lights blasted out and slammed into the barrier. Kacha! Countless cracks appeared on the barrier formed by the beast bone array disc. It was on the verge of collapse. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. His array Dao level was still somewhat lacking. This barrier could block an eighth step void sky eighth step cultivator, but it couldn't block an attack from a stronger cultivator. Zhuowen felt a little helpless in his heart. He transmitted his voice to Ma Yujie in the corner. "Brother Ma, help me set up a new barrier to trap this old man. I'll give you 50 time and space crystals each." Ma Yujie, who was sitting in the corner, played with the wine cup in his hand. He chuckled and said, 100 time and space crystals each. Otherwise, there's no need to talk. Zhuowen sneered and said, "In that case, forget it. I don't have to kill this old man. If I want to escape, this old man might not be able to catch up to me." Ma Yujie frowned slightly. He knew very well that Zhuowen's main purpose in arranging the barrier was to prevent the people from Lu Xin Temple from calling Lu Haoyin. And the people from the Desire Palace were under the control of Yao Shangjuan at this moment. They certainly wouldn't call Palace Master Jingyan at this juncture. If this old man were to break the barrier now, the first thing he would do would not be to kill Zhuowen, but to call for Lu Haoyin. Zhuowen was not afraid of a half-step void sky ninth stage expert. However, if two life comprehension realm experts were added to the mix, Zhuowen knew that he would definitely have to flee and not fight. "Deal." Ma Yujie hurriedly transmitted his voice. Then he jumped up from the corner of the hotel. With a wave of his sleeve, he threw out dozens of array discs. Ma Yujie's hands quickly formed a seal. Then, the dozens of array discs emitted a blazing white light that scattered in all directions. Outside Zhuowen's enchantment, another layer of enchantment was set up that was even stronger. Kacha! Zhuowen's barrier finally shattered under the old man's attack, and the old man had already swept to the edge of the barrier. When he saw Ma Yujie, the fatty, suddenly take action and set up another barrier, his eyes cracked and his anger overflowed. "Damn it, you're courting death." The angry old man raised his black long saber with both hands and smashed it on the newly set barrier. Boom! Suddenly, sparks flew between the long saber and the barrier, and the old man's pupils shrank. He only felt that the two sabers had hit the hardest rock and were directly bounced back. The moment the old man retreated, a sword light instantly swept over and went straight for his neck. The old man quickly adjusted the boiling blood in his body and swung his hands back, heavily colliding with Zhuowen's king's sword. The sound of gold and iron clashing was particularly harsh. Then Zhuowen retreated dozens of steps, while the old man retreated more than 10 steps. The old man took a deep breath and looked at Zhuowen in shock. He didn't expect this guy to be able to force him to retreat in a head-on collision. At the same time, what shocked the old man even more was that the barrier set up by the fatty was actually so sturdy. His attack had no effect on the barrier at all. Instead, he was forced back by the rebounding force of the barrier. Just as the old man was lost in thought, the sound of breaking air rang out again. He knew that the young man in white had rushed over again. "I'll kill you first, and then inform the temple master." The old man snorted coldly. Holding the saber with both hands, he also rushed out and instantly engaged in a fierce battle with Zhuowen. Boom! 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 Saber light and sword shadows constantly flashed inside the barrier, which looked dazzling. The terrifying aftermath of the battle swept out like a hurricane, exploding in all directions. The battle between the two became more and more intense and terrifying. Just from the aftermath of the battle at the edge of the barrier, everyone could feel how terrifying and intense the battle was. Ma Yujie looked at the white-clothed young man who was evenly matched with the old man and muttered in a low voice, "This kid isn't simple. He's actually so strong that he can fight with a half-step, ninth-step virtual sky expert to this extent. However, this kid is at a disadvantage. He should be defeated after 100 moves." Ma Yujie's eyes were indeed sharp. After Zhuowen and the old man exchanged 100 moves, the old man roared and attacked with both sabers, which contained a trace of Tao rhythm. Zhuowen was caught off guard and was smashed to the ground by this attack. He was in a sorry state. Fortunately, after soaking in the true dragon's blood, Zhuowen's physical body wasn't weaker than Devour's. Moreover, he wasn't unfamiliar with the heavenly Tao rhythm. Therefore, he didn't feel much when he was hit by the old man's saber. He only suffered a flesh wound. However, the old man didn't think so. Although Zhuowen had only suffered superficial wounds, his external injuries looked like they were badly mutilated, giving people the impression that he had been seriously injured. The old man laughed complacently and said, "You're overestimating yourself. Today, I'll let you die a quick death." After saying that, the old man kicked his right knee and fell from the sky, falling towards Zhuowen. The Tao rhythm of the long saber in his hand circulated and emitted a terrifying aura. Anyone could see that this saber was aimed at taking Zhuowen's life. Zhuowen slowly stood up. He looked at the old man who was falling and took a deep breath. His right hand pointed at the void, and the power of the space-time law poured out like a vast ocean. Immediately after, Zhuowen's surroundings completely turned into an endless sea. Many cultivators around the restaurant were confused as they looked at the vast ocean that suddenly appeared around them. This ocean didn't look like an illusion. Instead, it looked real. Chapter 2363. Angry L.V. Houghton, the old man suddenly unleashed an unprecedented amount of divine power, but it only allowed him to move slowly. A sense of helplessness rose from the bottom of his heart. The old man felt a deep sense of fear. A waning sun slowly rose from the sea behind Zhuowen. As the sun slowly rose, the elder could not even move. Following this, waves of terrifying power exploded out from the elder's body. And as the sun rose higher and higher, this burst of power became more frequent. Boom! Boom! Everyone could only see the old man constantly howling as a bloody mist erupted from his body. The blood mist grew thicker and thicker, instantly engulfing the old man's figure. In the end, not even his shadow could be seen. When the sun rose to its highest point, the old man was completely annihilated into nothingness and died. When the sun and the sea completely disappeared, the countless cultivators in the restaurant fell into shock and didn't speak for a long time. Ma Yujie looked at Zhuowen solemnly and thought to himself, this guy actually created his own space-time god art. Is this guy a freak? No, I have to go to the river of space-time quicksand as well. After this trip to the divine pill secret land, I have to go there once. Ma Yujie regained his senses. Other than shock, there was also regret in his heart. He knew that Zhuowen must have comprehended this divine ability from the river of space-time quicksand. He was very confident in his perception. Since this Zhuowen could comprehend his own space-time sacred art, then he would be able to do the same after entering the space-time quicksand river. What he regretted was that he hadn't been able to enter the river of space-time quicksand and missed the opportunity to comprehend space-time divine abilities. However, it wasn't too late now. After he finished exploring the divine pill secret realm, he could go to the space-time river of quicksand. Zhuowen immediately swallowed the heavenly domain starry sky essence the moment he cast the waning sun on the sea. Then he winked at Ma Yuji. The latter nodded. After removing the barrier, the two of them quickly left the restaurant. Yao Xiangjuan originally wanted to call out to Zhuowen, but she remembered that Zhuowen from Lushan Hall had killed people from Lushan Hall, and that her martial uncle would most likely join in the hunt for Zhuowen. In the end, she didn't stop Zhuowen. After Zhuowen and Ma Yuji dashed out into the distance and vanished, the numerous cultivators in the restaurant were in an uproar as they discussed animatedly. Of course, the most discussed thing was why didn't LV Haotian and Palace Master Jingyan come out when the battle was so fierce? Shrine Lu must have sent a message to LV Haotian, but LV Haotian still didn't appear, which made everyone's imaginations creak. At this moment, the doors room of peoples. Everyone was familiar with these two figures. Weren't they Lu Haotian of Shrine Lu and Palace Master Jingyan of Desire Palace? The two of them were chatting cheerfully, appearing to be leisurely and contented. This caused the crowd to reveal strange expressions. Haha, Palace Master Jingyan, happy cooperation. LV Haotian couldn't help but laugh. Palace Master Jingyan smiled and nodded. Obviously, the two of them were having a good chat in the room. However, when LV Haotian and Palace Master Jingyan walked downstairs, they soon found that something was wrong. They found that the surrounding cultivators were looking at them strangely. What's going on? LV Haotian was about to speak, but his words soon stagnated because he had already seen the dozens of corpses lying on the ground in the restaurant. Especially when he saw Ancestor Lu's corpse, he felt as if he was struck by lightning and couldn't help but take a step back. But soon, LV Haotian quickly stepped forward and came to Ancestor Lu's corpse. He squatted down and began to repeatedly probe Ancestor Lu's aura with his divine sense. He found that Ancestor Lu had completely lost all signs of life. LV Haotian was silent for a moment. He immediately stood up, looked at Yao Xiangjuan and the other disciples of Desire Palace, and hissed, "Who did it?" Yao Xiangjuan frowned slightly and didn't answer. Instead, a disciple of Desire Palace next to her came out and said, "It was a young man in white. He killed Ancestor Lu in a sneak attack, and then killed the rest of the people of Shrine Lu." Palace Master Jingyan glanced at Ancestor Lu, and her heart was full of surprise. She didn't expect that someone would be so bold as to kill Ancestor Lu, the young master of Shrine Lu. It was too bold. Young man in white? Do you know that young man in white? LV Haotian's eyes were gloomy. Unfortunately, the disciple of Desire Palace shook her head, indicating that she didn't know the young man in white. "Do you have an image of that person?" LV Haotian asked coldly. The disciples of Desire Palace all shook their heads. They didn't have the habit of recording images. "Palace Master LV, this little one has it." Suddenly, a cultivator in the crowd quickly said. LV Haotian looked at the cultivator and said, "Give me the image, and I won't treat you unfairly." The man grinned and eagerly handed the crystal ball to LV Haotian. LV Haotian took the crystal ball and immediately began to check the image inside. When he found that the young man in white in the image killed Ancestor Lu in an instant and slaughtered the people of Shrine Lu, the killing intent in his eyes burst out like a vast ocean. It was extremely dazzling. "Zhuowen, it's this little bastard who dared to kill my son and the people of Shrine Lu. He's simply tired of living." LV Haotian's pupils shrank as he stared at the young man in white in the image. When Ancestor Lu told him about the space-time key, he also showed him Zhuowen's face, so he recognized Zhuowen at a glance. Originally, LV Haotian thought that Zhuowen should be fleeing, but he didn't expect that he would come to the Pil Furnace Star Field and be so bold as to kill Ancestor Lu and many elites of Shrine Lu. He's Zhuowen? He's very strong, and he even created a space-time divine ability. Palace Master Jingyan's eyes flashed with surprise. LV Haotian didn't block the image in the crystal ball, so Palace Master Jingyan could clearly see Zhuowen's face. This time, she and LV Haotian were originally discussing the space-time key, which was obtained by Zhuowen. Originally, she didn't pay much attention to Zhuowen after knowing that he was only a 7th-step Void Sky rogue cultivator. But now, after seeing the image, she didn't dare to be careless. A mere 7th-step Void Sky rogue cultivator could easily kill a peak 8th-step Void Sky rogue cultivator and even kill a half-step 9th-step Void Sky rogue cultivator with a space-time divine ability. Even the most powerful genius of Six Desires Palace couldn't do such a feat. Moreover, she also found that this rogue cultivator was not very old. He definitely cultivated for less than 1,000 years. At such a young age, he actually had the strength of an expert of the older generation. He was definitely a monster. Chapter 2364. Parting ways, Temple Master Lu, my benefits. After Lu Haotian calmed down, the cultivator who offered the crystal ball looked at Lu Haotian with a flattering smile, looking forward to the benefits promised by the latter. Die. Lu Haotian's eyes turned red. He was already in a fit of anger, and this cultivator just had to provoke him. In a fit of anger, he directly smashed the cultivator into pieces with a palm strike. The poor cultivator's flattering smile didn't even fade before it was completely annihilated into nothingness. The surrounding people kept quiet out of fear, looking at the furious Lu Haotian in horror. They didn't expect Lu Haotian to break his promise, but they didn't dare to come out and criticize him. After all, Lu Haotian was too powerful. They didn't dare to offend such a terrifying existence for unrelated people. Lu Haotian came before Yao Xiangjuan and said, "Miss Yao, I heard from Ancestor Lu that you have a good relationship with Zhuowen. Is Zhuowen your friend?" Yao Xiangjuan raised her head, looked at Lu Haotian indifferently and said, "I'm sorry, I don't know Zhuowen at all. It's useless to ask me." The veins on Lu Haotian's forehead bulged. He looked coldly at Yao Xiangjuan and growled, "Miss Yao, do you think you can talk to me so presumptuously just because you're a disciple of Six Desires Palace? Let me tell you, you'd better be sensible. Otherwise, I don't know what I'll do." Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes narrowed. Lu Haotian actually dared to threaten her in public. Palace Master Jingyan frowned and said coldly, "Temple Master Lu, you're threatening a disciple of Six Desires Palace in front of me. Are you looking down on me?" Lu Haotian looked at Palace Master Jingyan and said coldly, "Palace Master Jingyan, Ancestor Lu wouldn't lie to me. Miss Yao definitely knows Zhuowen. Otherwise, why would she just stand by and watch when Zhuowen was fighting with our people?" Palace Master Jingyan sneered and said, "You mean to say that you want my people to die in Zhuowen's hands?" Lu Haotian's face stiffened. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Zhuowen wasn't a simple person. Even a half-step Void Sky 9th-step expert was killed by him. The people that Palace Master Jingyan brought were not much stronger than the people from Lu Shanhal. Since Lu Shanhal's people were completely annihilated by Zhuowen, then Palace Master Jingyan's people would not be able to gain any benefits. Palace Master Jingyan, that's not what I meant. You should know what I mean. LV Haotian said with an ugly expression. Palace Master Jingyan glanced at Lu Haotian indifferently, then looked at Yao Xiangjuan and said with a smile, "Xiangjuan, is what Ancestor Lu said true? Are you friends with Zhuowen?" Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes flickered as she said, "Martial uncle, I've only met Zhuowen once. I don't know him at all. Ancestor Lu must be making things up." Palace Master Jingyan nodded and didn't continue to ask. Although Yao Shangjuan was a disciple of Six Desires Palace, her status was very special. She was the direct disciple of the palace master of Six Desires Palace. The Palace of Desire was the most powerful palace in the Six Desires Palace. It had very few disciples, and the palace lord of the Palace of Desire was very protective. Therefore, Jingyin did not dare to force Yao Shangjuan too much. After all, this would make Yao Shangjuan unhappy. At that time, if Yao Shangjuan went back and gossiped with the palace master of Six Desires Palace, it would be troublesome for her. Palace Master Lu, that's it. I will help you keep an eye out for Zhuowen. You should also keep an eye out for him. If you find any clues, you can inform me at any time. I will help you investigate. Palace Master Jing Yin said indifferently. Lu Haotian's face was gloomy. He knew that Jing Yin didn't intend to continue to ask Yao Shangjuan. This made him very unhappy. This time, his shrine Lu had suffered a great loss. Moreover, he had lost his own son. Since Jing Yin couldn't even interrogate his disciple, Lu Haotian's heart was clouded. In that case, this Lu will take his leave. Since this kid came to the Pill Furnace City of the Pill Furnace Star Field, I'm afraid he came for the Divine Pill Secret Realm. After Lu Haotian finished speaking, he left the restaurant. The people of Shrine Lu being killed in the restaurant was a great humiliation to him. He couldn't stand the feeling of being pointed at behind his back. After Lu Haotian left, the people in the restaurant also gradually dispersed. Palace Master Jingyin turned to look at Yao Shangjuan and said, Shangjuan, now that there are no outsiders here, tell me the truth. Do you know Zhuowen? Is the space-time divine key with him? Yao Shangjuan's eyes were calm. When Lu Haotian came to find Palace Master Jingyin, she had already guessed what Lu Haotian wanted. Now that Palace Master Jingyin knew about the space-time divine key, she didn't find it strange. Martial Ant, there is indeed a space-time divine key in the space-time quicksand river, and I was trapped there because of the space-time divine keys trial. Only those who pass the trial can obtain the space-time divine key and leave. Yao Shangjuan suddenly said seriously, The one who passed the trial is indeed Zhuowen, but because of this he saved me and Ancestor Lu's life. I don't find it strange that Ancestor Lu is ungrateful, but I am a person who knows how to repay kindness. Martial Ant, if you want to deal with Zhuowen, Shangjuan will not hesitate to stand by his side. If anything happens to Zhuowen, Shangjuan, I will also suffer. Palace Master Jing Yin's beautiful eyes shrank. Yao Shangjuan was threatening her face to face. If anything were to happen to Yao Shangjuan while she was with her, the palace lord of the EU Palace would not let it go. Seeing Palace Master Jingyin fall silent, Yao Shangjuan said softly, Martial Ant Jingyin, you should want to enter the space-time temple, right? But I heard that the space-time temple needs 3 space-time divine keys. 1 space-time divine key is useless. Right now, I just want to remind Martial Uncle that Zhuowen is not an ordinary person. Although he is a rogue cultivator, he was able to jump realms to kill a cultivator who had reached the 9th step of the Void Domain. He even created his own space-time god art. His strength far surpasses his peers. Martial Ant Jingyin, do you really want to provoke such an existence who may become a supreme expert in the future? Just for a key that you don't use? I hope Martial Ant won't be used by Lu Haotian. After Yao Shangjuan finished speaking, she left the restaurant. Palace Master Jing Yin frowned slightly. She looked at Yao Shangjuan's back and sighed softly. She muttered, This little girl's words are reasonable. When the time comes, let's see how things go. Whoosh! In a secluded alley it was dark and damp. 2 figures rushed to the alley like black lightning and finally stopped in the depths of the alley. The 2 figures, one fat and one thin, were sneakily groping around in the alley. Brother Zhua, I really didn't expect your strength to improve so quickly. It hasn't been long since we separated, but you already have the strength to kill a half-step Void Sky 9th step cultivator. You're really amazing. Ma Yujia wiggled his fat body in the dark alley and gave a thumbs up to the young man in white behind him. Brother Ma, here are 50 space-time crystals. Thank you for your help this time. Let's part ways here. Chapter 2365. Pill Tower Mayuja looked at Joan's back as he stroked his chin with his right hand and muttered, "This guy is really anxious. It seems like he's afraid that I'll ask him about his space-time divine ability." After a short pause, Mayuja also left the alley and fled in the opposite direction of Joan. After Joa, when left the alley, he changed his appearance, and even his aura completely changed. After killing Ancestor Lu and so many people from the Lu Shrine, Lu Haotian would definitely fly into a rage. He killed Ancestor Lu and his group in front of so many people. Zhuowen didn't believe that no one recorded it with a crystal ball. As long as Lu Haotian saw the image in the crystal ball, he would be able to quickly guess that it was Zhuowen who did it. Therefore, to be on the safe side, he naturally changed his appearance. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if he was recognized. Zhuowen casually chosen in. After getting a room, he entered seclusion. There were still 3 days before the divine pill secret domain would open. According to Mayuja, 3 days later, he would need to gather at the Pill Tower with his quoted jade card. At that time, the Pill Tower's people would use their alchemic fire to open the divine pill secret domain. Zhuowen summoned the black-clothed Zhuowen and looked at him with bright eyes. At this moment, the wind disaster aura on the black-clothed Zhuowen was extremely dense. Even though the black-clothed Zhuowen was trying his best to suppress it, Zhuowen's main body could still feel the wind disaster that was about to erupt from the black-clothed Zhuowen. The black-clothed Zhuowen had already survived 6 wind disasters in the space-time river of quicksand. Now, a lot of time had passed, and the black-clothed Zhuowen had accumulated 2 more wind disasters. If the clone released the wind disaster aura this time, there would be 2 wind disasters stacked together. The wind disasters of the 3 extremes True God were already very terrifying. The 2 wind disasters this time would be even more terrifying. In fact, Zhuowen was worried that the black-clothed Zhuowen's 9th wind disaster was about to arrive. The 3 disasters, True God's wind disasters, were very regular. The first, 9th, 14th, and 19th wind disasters were considered a threshold. Originally, the 7th and 8th wind disasters were suppressed by the black-clothed Zhuowen, but now the 9th wind disaster was about to arrive. Adding the 9th wind disaster, the power of the wind disaster would probably reach an unprecedented level. Zhuowen sighed in his heart. He had always let the black-clothed Zhuowen cultivate freely, but he didn't expect the clone to cultivate so fast. Unknowingly, the clone had already accumulated the 9th wind disaster. Now, Zhuowen was a true God's will. If the 9th wind disaster also appeared, how would he smoothly pass it? I can only take 1 step at a time. I wonder if there are any divine pills that can reduce the disaster? Zhuowen's eyes lit up. This pill furnace city was the core of the pill furnace star field. There were many different types of God pills here. Perhaps he could find a God pill that could reduce the disaster. Thinking of this, Zhuowen immediately stood up and left the inn. Before leaving the inn, he asked the shopkeeper about the biggest place to sell God pills in Pill Furnace City. He found out that there was only one place to sell God pills in Pill Furnace City. That was the Pill Tower. The Pill Tower was divided into 10 levels. The first 9 levels sold God pills from level 1 to level 9. The 10th level was the core of the Pill Tower, and there were many elders of the Pill Tower guarding the pill fire above the 10th level. Of course, not all of the God pills in the Pill Tower belonged to the Pill Tower. Most of them were sold by the alchemists of the Pill Furnace Star Field. These alchemists sold God pills in the Pill Tower, and they had to pay the Pill Tower a certain amount of rent. However, it was said that the 8th and 9th levels were controlled by the Pill Tower. The level 8 and level 9 God pills were sold by the Pill Tower. Of course, not everyone could enter the 8th and 9th levels. One had to have the Pill Tower's token to enter, or be recommended by others. After asking around, Zhuowen directly walked towards the Pill Tower. After a while, Zhuowen arrived in front of the Pill Tower. The Pill Tower was extremely lively, and there were people coming and going. He didn't receive any obstructions when he entered the first level. The Pill Tower was very big, and there were countless people inside. However, Zhuowen didn't feel that it was crowded. This showed how big the Pill Tower was. On the first level, there were white jade platforms. In front of the platforms stood alchemists in loose robes. On the platforms, there were many brocade boxes. God pills lay quietly in the brocade boxes, and the names of the god pills were written on the front of the brocade boxes. Zhuowen casually walked around, and he immediately lost interest. Just as the shopkeeper said, the first level was basically filled with level 1 god pills. They were useless to Zhuowen. However, Zhuowen remembered that the true god, 3 disasters disaster, didn't need to be of a high level, so he casually walked to the front of a platform. On this platform was an old man in a white robe. When he saw Zhuowen walk over, he only nodded indifferently. He didn't have any intention of soliciting or introducing him. "Friend, I want to ask what kind of god pill can weaken the wind disaster of the true god, 3 disasters?" Zhuowen asked tentatively. The white-robed old man raised his head and sized up Zhuowen. When he discovered that Zhuowen was a powerful void sky expert, he asked doubtfully, "You don't seem to need this thing, right?" "My junior needs it." Zhuowen casually made up a lie. The white-robed old man nodded and pointed at a brocade box. "If you want to weaken the wind disaster, use this wind avoidance pill. This god pill can greatly weaken the power of the wind disaster. It's very suitable for the true god, 3 disasters." Zhuowen looked at the wind avoidance pill and discovered that it was also a level 1 god pill. He creased his eyebrows and revealed a hesitant expression. It should be known that his doppelganger wasn't an ordinary true god, 3 disasters, but a true god, 3 disasters who had already become a true god of thunder and fire. The wind disaster was also countless times stronger than an ordinary true god, 3 disasters. It was a wind disaster that even a void sky 8th level cultivator feared. Zhuowen wasn't sure if a mere level 1 god pill could really weaken the power of the wind disaster of his doppelganger. "Why? You don't believe me?" When the white-robed old man saw Zhuowen creasing his eyebrows, he couldn't help but ask unhappily. Zhuowen smiled apologetically and said, "My junior isn't an ordinary true god, 3 disasters. He is a cultivator who has advanced to real god extreme thunder and real god extreme fire at the same time. Now he is advancing to real god extreme wind." So, at first, the white-robed old man didn't care. However, the moment he heard what Zhuowen said, his turbid eyes narrowed into slits. He sized up Zhuowen and said after a long while, "Your junior is planning to advance to real god 3 extremes." Zhuowen touched the back of his head and said, "That's indeed the case." After the white-robed old man confirmed what Zhuowen said, he looked around and immediately sent a message to Zhuowen carefully. "If what you said is true, I will bring you to see someone who can help your junior." Chapter 2366. Heavenly Fragrance. Pill. The white-robed elder's face reddened as he hurriedly said, "This wind avoidance pill is only effective on ordinary true gods, 3 disasters. It shouldn't have any effect on a junior like you." Zhuowen nodded and cupped his fists. "Thank you for your help, friend." Although Zhuowen said that, he was actually quite afraid. This elder's expression couldn't escape his eyes. Originally, this elder didn't care about him. But now that he heard about true god 3 extremes, he immediately became so enthusiastic. Of course, Zhuowen wasn't afraid. This elder's cultivation wasn't high. At most, he was only at virtual Sky 1. He really wasn't afraid of what tricks this guy could play. The white-robed elder put away the high platform and then led Zhuowen to the top of the Pill Pagoda. The white-robed elder led Zhuowen up floor by floor. They passed through the second floor, the 3rd floor, and all the way to the 7th floor. As they kept going up, Zhuowen realized that the higher they went, the fewer people there were. Of course, the grade of the divine pills was also higher. The white-robed elder stopped and looked at Zhuowen with a smile. "Friend, I still haven't asked for your name." "Long Wen." Zhuowen replied indifferently. The white-robed elder nodded and said, "I'm Ping Pong. Others call me Elder Peng. You can also call me Elder Peng. Now, I have to go up and ask for instructions. When the time comes, I'll come down to find you." "You're from the Pill Tower?" Zhuowen looked at the white-robed old man with a low cultivation base in astonishment. The white-robed elder's eyes revealed a trace of sadness. He waved his hand and said, "How can I enter the Pill Pagoda's eyes?" "It's just that there's an acquaintance in the Pill Pagoda. This acquaintance can help you with your junior's matter." When the white-robed elder was about to turn and walk up, Zhuowen said, "Elder Peng, we've only met by chance. Why are you helping me? And you're going to find an acquaintance?" The white-robed old man turned around and said earnestly, "Brother Long, please believe me. I definitely don't have any bad intentions, nor have I ever thought of harming you. It's just that true God Sinji is very important to this acquaintance of mine. He once said that if there's any news about this kind of person, I must definitely tell him." So Zhuowen frowned slightly. Although he didn't quite believe it, the sincerity in the old man's eyes didn't seem to be fake. "Go, I'll wait for you here." Zhuowen said indifferently, "Many thanks." The white-robed old man expressed his gratitude and headed to the 8th floor. Furthermore, Zhuowen discovered that there were already people guarding the staircase from the 8th floor onwards. If one did not have the corresponding token or procedures, they would not be allowed to enter. Since he was bored waiting, Zhuowen began to stroll around the 7th floor. The divine pills sold on the 7th floor were basically all level 7 divine pills, and there were even fewer people. However, most of them were void sky experts, so they were obviously experts who could afford level 7 divine pills. Heavenly fragrance pill? Zhuowen walked to the front of a rather solemn platform and discovered that there was only a brocade box on the platform. The words heavenly fragrance pill were written on the brocade box. Zhuowen had heard of the heavenly fragrance pill before. It was a level 7 divine pill, but it was extremely rare. Moreover, the heavenly fragrance pill was usually used by female cultivators. It was basically impossible for male cultivators to use this kind of thing. The heavenly fragrance pill's function was to allow female cultivators to naturally emit a rich body fragrance. Moreover, this kind of body fragrance could also improve one's cultivation. Of course, the heavenly fragrance pill also had another important function, which was to allow female cultivators to continuously expel the toxins in their bodies after consuming it, causing their bodies and skin to become even more perfect. This thing could be said to be a fatal temptation to female cultivators. Everyone loved beauty, not to mention female cultivators who had a longer lifespan. They cared more about their appearance. There were even many female cultivators who were willing to spend most of their money on maintaining their appearance. As for the heavenly fragrance pill that could naturally emit a body fragrance that could improve one's cultivation and also maintain one's appearance, it was very popular among female cultivators. The one selling the heavenly fragrance pill on the platform was a beautiful female cultivator. It was clear that this female cultivator specialized in selling heavenly fragrance pills. There was only a single heavenly fragrance pill left on the platform, so it was clear that all the other heavenly fragrance pills had been sold and there was only this one left. Seeing the heavenly fragrance pill, Zhuowen couldn't help thinking of Mu Qinxue. If he could buy this heavenly fragrance pill and give it to Qinxue, perhaps she would be very happy. Although Zhuowen didn't have any news about Mu Qinxue, he knew that once he became stronger, he would charge into the great Brahma heavenly palace. He knew that since Mu Qinxue had already come to the great Brahma heavenly palace once, it meant that she had a grudge with the great Brahma heavenly palace. Since it was like this, she would definitely come to the great Brahma heavenly palace a second time. As long as he waited in the great Brahma heavenly palace, he would definitely be able to meet Mu Chinchua. However, he wasn't strong enough now. If he went to the great Brahma heavenly palace, he would probably be kicked out before he could even enter the door. When the time comes, I can give the heavenly fragrance pill to her. Zhuowen muttered as he came to the front of the platform. How much is the heavenly fragrance pill? Zhuowen asked. The female cultivator looked at Zhuowen indifferently and said, 1,000,000 high-grade divine stones. Zhuowen's gaze froze. Wasn't the price of the heavenly fragrance pill a little too expensive? Just one pill would cost 1,000,000 high-grade divine stones. If you think it's too expensive, please leave. Don't disturb my business. The female cultivator saw Zhuowen's expression, and her tone was rather impolite. Zhuowen frowned slightly, but he didn't care too much. Instead, he threw a storage bag to the female cultivator and said, There are 1,000,000 high-grade, divine stones in here. I'll buy the heavenly fragrance pill. The female cultivator tapped the storage bag and nodded. Zhuowen picked up the heavenly fragrance pill. Wait. Suddenly, a clear female voice interrupted Zhuowen's actions. Zhuowen kept the heavenly fragrance pill, then turned around and saw 2 figures standing behind him. One of the 2 figures was a beautiful woman dressed coquettishly, while the other was a handsome young man dressed in a long robe. The 2 of them stood there like a golden boy and a jade girl. They were quite compatible, and the one who spoke just now was the coquettishly dressed woman. What is it? Zhuowen unhurriedly kept the heavenly fragrance pill into his spirit ring and looked at the 2 of them indifferently. The beautiful woman watched as Zhuowen kept the heavenly fragrance pill. Her brows furrowed slightly as she said, It just so happens that I need the heavenly fragrance pill too. Can you part with it and give it to me? Zhuowen looked at the woman with amusement and said, Sorry, I don't plan to sell the heavenly fragrance pill. The beautiful woman was rather displeased as she said, From the looks of it, you don't have a Tao companion. What's the use of buying the heavenly fragrance pill? Could it be that you want to use it yourself? How do you know that we have a Tao companion? And whether I have a Tao companion or not has nothing to do with you, right? Zhuowen sneered. The beautiful woman's face immediately darkened. Clearly, she was very displeased with the attitude of this cultivator in front of her. Chapter 2367. Make things difficult, Gushan. Don't get angry over some small fry. It's too degrading. Let me handle it. The handsome young man smiled at the beautiful woman. The beautiful woman blushed slightly and said sweetly, Wanjie, I knew you were the best. As long as you take action, you'll definitely succeed. Zhuowen really couldn't stand watching the 2 of them being lovey-dovey and said indifferently, Sorry, I don't agree to sell the heaven fragrance pill in my possession. It's useless no matter how much you pay. The handsome young man glanced at Zhuowen and said with a mocking smile, Oh, looks like you're very confident. You're just a nobody, yet you're so tough. I really admire you. As he spoke, the handsome young man turned around to look at the female cultivator on the high platform, and then he withdrew a flame command token and said, Friend, the heavenly fragrance pill was something that we took a fancy to first. Yet this fellow suddenly snatched it away from us, right? The moment the female cultivator saw the flame token, a trace of fear and respect appeared in her beautiful eyes. She glanced at Zhuowen and hurriedly lowered her head. Sir, you're right. This person snatched our heaven fragrance pill away, and what's more hateful is that he didn't even pay. He's really too hateful. We should let the enforcers take him away. The handsome young man nodded with satisfaction and put away the flame token. Then he looked at Zhuowen with a cold smile and said, Friend, do you still want to monopolize the last heaven fragrance pill? I advise you to immediately take that thing out and give it to my Tao companion, then kneel on the ground and apologize to the 2 of us for your actions just now. Otherwise, the pill tower's enforcers won't be so reasonable Zhuowen silently looked at the handsome young man with a complacent expression, but he fell into deep thought. He noticed that the flame token this young man took out was the same as the white-robed old man's. It seemed like he was also from the Pill Tower. Moreover, this person was so fearless. He probably had some background in the Pill Tower. Are you deaf? Didn't you hear what Wanjie said? Hurry up and kneel down and give the heaven fragrance pill to me. The beautiful woman did not conceal the complacency in her eyes. She immediately came in front of Zhuowen and pointed at Zhuowen's nose. Unfortunately, just as the beautiful woman reached her hand in front of Zhuowen's nose, her hand was immediately grabbed by Zhuowen. What do you want to do? The beautiful woman was shocked and shouted, Don't point your dirty finger at me. Zhuowen exerted force with his right hand and twisted the beautiful woman's hand. Then he threw her away like a piece of trash. The handsome youth's expression was unsightly. He hugged the beautiful woman and glared at Zhuowen. How dare you? You actually dare to make a move in the Pill Tower? Where are the enforcers? The commotion between Zhuowen and the handsome young man immediately alarmed the other cultivators on the 7th floor. One by one, they cast their gazes over and looked over in surprise. When they saw the handsome young man, they all began to discuss spiritedly. From the surrounding discussions, Zhuowen realized that the handsome young man's identity was not simple. The Pill Tower was originally managed by the 9 Great Elders. Because the Great Elder had suddenly passed away a few days ago, the Pill Tower now only had 8 elders. The handsome young man's name was Feng Wanjie. He was the only son of the Pill Tower's 7th elder. He was a spoiled brat. No one in the Pill Tower dared to provoke him. Deng, deng, deng. Just as Feng Wanjie finished speaking, the enforcers on the 7th floor rushed over. There were only 18 enforcers on the 7th floor, but each of them was at least at the 6th floor of the Void Sky Realm. The leader was at the peak of the 7th floor of the Void Sky Realm. When the old man in the lead saw Feng Wanjie, he revealed a look of surprise. Then he asked solemnly what happened. Although the old enforcer said that his gaze was extremely unfriendly as he looked at Zhuowen, anyone could see that it was indeed Zhuowen who made the first move. Zhuowen sighed softly in his heart. He did not expect that buying a heavenly fragrance pill would actually cause such unnecessary trouble. Zhuowen was just about to explain what happened just now when Feng Wanjie interrupted. Not only did this person forcefully snatch the heavenly fragrance pill we bought, he even flew into a rage out of humiliation and directly attacked in the Pill Tower. He is truly hateful. If this person is not captured, the heavens will not tolerate it. The old enforcer narrowed his eyes. Then he looked coldly at Zhuowen and said, Since that's the case, you should surrender now and save us the trouble of making a move. Zhuowen silently looked at the enforcer leader and Feng Wanjie, who echoed each other, especially when he saw the smug smile on Feng Wanjie's face. Zhuowen felt even more displeased in his heart. I've never been a troublemaker, but sometimes things just have to provoke me. In that case, don't blame me for being impolite. As he spoke, Zhuowen's right hand suddenly grabbed at Feng Wanjie. You've got guts. The enforcer leader's pupils shrank. With a loud roar, he rushed toward Zhuowen. The other enforcers behind him also surrounded Zhuowen from all directions. Boom! 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 Zhuowen sneered. His right hand that was reaching toward Feng Wanjie changed direction and blasted toward the enforcers. The power of space-time law suddenly erupted. Instantly, more than 10 enforcers were instantly sent flying and smashed into the ground, not far away. The enforcer leader was in an even more miserable state. He was directly slammed into the rock wall by Zhuowen's palm. For a moment, the 7th floor was dead silent. Everyone looked at this scene in shock. They clearly did not expect that someone would actually dare to cause trouble here and even hit enforcers. This was truly audacious. After all, this was the Pill Tower. You've got guts. Do you know what you're doing? Feng Wanjie's pupils shrank. He looked at Juowen with some fear. He did not expect this white-clothed youth to be so fearless. He even dared to hit enforcers. Moreover, his cultivation was only at the early stage of the Void Sky 7th step. If even the enforcer leader was sent flying with a single slap, he was definitely not a match for this youth. "Scram!" Juowen said coldly. Feng Wanjia's expression was unsightly. He did not even care about the beautiful woman. He ran toward the 8th floor in a panic. The beautiful woman, on the other hand, was in a daze. Especially when she saw Juowen looking at her, she ran away in a panic. After experiencing this incident, Juowen was in a bad mood. When he saw that the white-robed old man still had not come out, Juowen did not wait any longer. It was not that he could not resolve the matter of the wind disaster. Now that he was unhappy because of this matter, he really did not want to wait any longer. Thus, he walked down the stairs of the Pill Tower, planning to leave. However, when Juowen arrived at the first level of the Pill Pagoda and was about to walk out the door, a powerful restriction appeared at the door, blocking Juowen's path. "Get the hell up here. You hit an enforcer and have no regard for the law. Do you think you can just walk away like this?" A loud shout suddenly came from the top of the Pill Tower. It was like thunder in Juowen's mind. Chapter 2368. The 7th elder of the Pill Tower Juowen grunted coldly and paid no attention to that voice at all. Instead, his sleeves bulged as he suddenly smashed his fist onto the restriction at the entrance. Boom! Juowen's full-powered punch contained the power of the space-time rules as it heavily smashed into the restriction. The restriction shook violently as layers of invisible ripples appeared on its surface. It exploded with a loud bang as if it would shatter at any moment. The restriction on the first level of the Pill Tower was not strong. Juowen punched again, causing space-time to distort and shatter the restriction. The sound of the restriction shattering immediately attracted the attention of everyone on the first level. Numerous gazes shot towards the white-clothed young man standing at the entrance, revealing a puzzled expression. Clearly, they did not know what had happened. "How dare you? You're courting death." A cold snort came from above the Pill Tower. This time, the voice was not transmitted through divine consciousness, but directly spread outside the Pill Tower. For a moment, the cultivators in the Pill Tower turned pale with fright. They did not know what was going on. Then, the sound of hurried footsteps could be heard. The footsteps did not belong to one person, but a group of people. Then, the cultivators on the first level saw groups of law enforcers walking up from the Pill Tower. There were at least 100 of them. 2 figures walked in front of the law enforcers. One was old and the other was young. The young man was no stranger to Juowen. It was Feng Wanjia, who had fled from the 7th level of the Pill Tower. The old man standing beside Feng Wanjia was about 60 years old. His hair was mottled with black and white, and he looked somewhat similar to Feng Wanjia. There were traces of old-fashioned patterns on his face. Although Juowen did not know this old man, he could tell from Feng Wanjia's posture that this old man was most likely Feng Wanjia's father, who was also the 7th elder of the Pill Tower. It's the 7th elder of the Pill Tower. What's going on? Could it be that this youth has done something wrong? He actually provoked the 7th elder to take action. The 7th elder of the Pill Tower has a high position and rarely shows himself. This time he actually showed up because of a white-robed youth. I wonder where this youth came from. Waves of discussions and commotion broke out in the surroundings. They were all discussing the white-clothed young man. The enforcers surrounded Juowen. The 7th elder looked at Juowen coldly and said, "Do you know your crime?" Juowen silently glanced at the 7th elder, then looked at the complacent Feng Wanjia beside the 7th elder and said indifferently, "Feng Wanjia, I originally had no enmity with you and I let you go before. Aren't you pushing your luck now?" When the 7th elder saw that Juowen was ignoring him, his eyes darkened and he looked at Feng Wanjia. Feng Wanjia was still rather afraid of his father, but he still skillfully twisted the truth and said, "Father, as you can see, this person not only beat up the enforcers, but also stole my things. In the end, he was still so impudent. Do you think we can let such a treacherous person go? This kind of person can be arrogant in other places, but he actually dares to be so arrogant in the pill tower. Where did he get his qualifications and confidence from? He's simply asking for humiliation." The seventh elder nodded, not doubting Feng Ranjia's words. Then he looked at Zhuowen. Just as he was about to speak, he was interrupted by Zhuowen. "You don't need to say anything. You just want to take me away. But today, this young master is in a very bad mood. You've successfully provoked me." Zhuowen coldly snorted and took a step forward, rushing toward Feng Ranjia. Zhuowen didn't care about the surrounding enforcers, but the seventh elder was a little troublesome. However, the seventh elder's cultivation wasn't very high. He was probably at the intermediate void sky 8th step. Zhuowen really didn't care about this kind of cultivation. Good. How dare you? Not only did you knowingly break the law, but you also directly attacked. If I don't take you down today, where will the pill tower's face go? The seventh elder was so angry that he started laughing. Zhuowen's actions were simply challenging his bottom line. A mere void sky 7th step cultivator was actually so arrogant. This was the seventh elder's first time seeing this. The seventh elder originally planned to be merciful, but now that this white-clothed youth had successfully angered him, he definitely wouldn't be lenient this time. The seventh elder suddenly spat out a mouthful of red alchemic fire. Soon after, the alchemic fire turned into a huge fire python and rushed toward Zhuowen. Zhuowen could feel that the alchemic fire spat out by the seventh elder was extraordinary. Its power was extremely terrifying. Even Zhuowen himself was scared witless. Although the alchemic fire's power wasn't as strong as the black-clothed Zhuowen's extreme flame, it wasn't much different. Zhuowen took out the phagocytosis. With a flip of his right hand, the phagocytosis turned into the size of a mountain and suppressed the fire python. At the same time, Zhuowen was like a bolt of lightning, quickly disappearing from the spot. When Zhuowen's figure reappeared, he was already beside Feng Ranjia. The seventh elder didn't expect that this youth with a low cultivation in front of him actually grasped the power of space-time law. He was caught off guard and actually allowed him to get close to him. "Get lost." The seventh elder roared when he saw Zhuowen appear beside Feng Ranjia. His right hand suddenly struck the void. Waves of flames turned into sharp flaming swords that pierced toward Zhuowen's fatal points. Zhuowen withdrew his sleeve, and the phagocytosis appeared in front of him, instantly blocking the seventh elder's flaming swords. Then his right hand suddenly grabbed toward Feng Ranjia. Feng Ranjia's cultivation wasn't high, so Zhuowen easily caught him. Feng Ranjia didn't even have a chance to resist. Zhuowen carried Feng Ranjia with his right hand and stomped his right foot on the ground. He then left the place with the phagocytosis. At this moment, the enforcers had already gathered and set up an inescapable net. The moment Zhuowen left, the enforcers immediately rushed forward and their combined attacks landed on Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen raised his right hand and the phagocytosis was lifted above his head. The power of Taoist rhymes constantly circulated on the surface of the phagocytosis, causing the power of the phagocytosis to reach an extremely terrifying level. When the enforcers' combined attacks landed on the phagocytosis, they were all destroyed by the Taoist rhymes on the phagocytosis' surface. The phagocytosis had fused with 2 Tao fruits and was much more powerful than before. The enforcer's cultivation was at the peak of the 7th step of the Void Sky Realm. Even if they joined forces, they still couldn't break through the phagocytosis' defense. Why aren't you letting go of Ranjia? The 7th elder anxiously shouted when he saw Zhuowen grab Feng Ranjia. Chapter 2369. On the 10th floor of the Pill Pagoda, Feng Ranjia was a little panicked, but he calmed down when he remembered that he was in the Pill Pagoda. He sneered, "Are you trying to threaten me?" You should know that this is the Pill Pagoda. You've made such a big fuss that the other elders will probably come out soon. Will you still dare to be so arrogant later? If I were you, I would release the hostage and let myself be captured. That way, your crime would be lighter." Zhuowen looked at the smug Feng Ruanjie, who didn't know the situation he was in. He had already determined that this guy was an idiot. Feng Ruanjie had already become his hostage, yet he was still so smug. He was simply courting death. Slap. Thinking of this, Zhuowen couldn't be bothered to say anything more to Feng Ruanjie. He directly sent a slap over. Immediately, Feng Ruanjie's right cheek became red and swollen. He spat out a mouthful of blood, mixed with some broken teeth. Zhuowen didn't show any mercy this time. He had used almost all of his strength. Although Feng Ruanjie was also a void sky expert, he actually became somewhat delirious after being slapped in the face. "You're not going to talk?" Zhuowen sneered. His right hand didn't stop slapping Feng Ruanjie's face. Before long, Feng Ruanjie's cheeks were swollen. His face was so swollen that he looked like an ugly pig's head. Don't hit me anymore. I'll talk. Feng Ruanjie shrieked. He didn't dare to be stubborn anymore. Although the slaps were only superficial, Zhuowen had used a lot of force. Every slap made Feng Ruanjie feel so much pain that he wanted to die. He just wanted to end this pain as soon as possible. "It's all because of me. I wronged this brother. It's all because of me." Under Zhuowen's coercion, Feng Ruanjie recounted everything that had happened on the 7th floor. The 7th elder's face darkened. He hadn't expected that all of this had happened because of his son. "7th elder, you hold a high position in the alchemy furnace, and you enforce the law impartially. I don't think you would abuse your power for personal gain, right?" Zhuowen casually tossed Feng Ruanjie to the ground, but his gaze landed on the 7th elder. At this moment, the 7th elder looked at the white-clothed young man in front of him with fear. This white-robed young man looked like he was only at the 7th step of the void sky realm, but his strength was terrifying. His methods were decisive and ruthless. He was a vicious person. In addition, his son, Feng Ruanjie, had confessed everything. This matter was indeed not the fault of this white-clothed youth. "You hit one of our Pill Tower's enforcers. How are you going to settle this matter? Are we just going to let it go like this?" 7th elder said coldly. Zhuowen smiled faintly and said, "If it weren't for your son, I wouldn't have a conflict with the law enforcement officers and wouldn't have been forced to take action. What do you think?" The 7th elder frowned. Although what Zhuowen said was not wrong, he was not willing to accept it. Zhuowen had beaten up the law enforcement officers and his son. Zhuowen was disrespectful to him. How could the 7th elder be willing to let Zhuowen go just like that? What happened? Just as Zhuowen and the 7th elder were in a deadlock on the first level of the Pill Tower, two figures walked down from the top of the Pill Tower. These two figures were not young. One of them was the white-robed elder who had entered the 8th level of the Pill Tower previously. The other person was dressed in a gray robe. His eyes were cold and his expression was solemn. He had a dignified aura around him. The gray-robed elder was the one who had said those words just now. "2nd elder, you're finally here." The moment the 7th elder saw the gray-robed elder, he immediately went up to him as if he had seen his savior. After the Pill Tower's great elder passed away, the person with the highest authority in the Pill Tower naturally fell to the 2nd elder. The 2nd elder of the Pill Tower was not a simple person. He was an existence who was even more powerful than the great elder. However, because his alchemy skills were not as good as the great elders, he was forced to take the position of the 2nd elder. To be honest, the 2nd elder's prestige in the Pill Tower was much higher than the great elders when he was alive. The other elders of the Pill Tower were very respectful of the 2nd elder. The 2nd elder indifferently glanced at the 7th elder. His cold gaze suddenly fell on Zhuowen's body. Soon after, He started to size up his surroundings. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. The moment the second elder's gaze fell on him, he actually had the misconception that he had been seen through. This feeling made him feel very uncomfortable. Moreover, he also discovered that the second elder's cultivation should only be at the half-step virtual sky ninth step. However, it gave him the feeling that he had been seen through. This was really too abnormal. When he had faced Kuang Li, or the elder from the Lu Shrine, he did not have this feeling of being seen through. However, when he met the second elder, he had this feeling. This made Zhuowen have a misconception that the second elder was not simple. Moreover, Zhuowen was sure that this was not an illusion. The second elder was indeed not simple. At this moment, the seventh elder was already whispering something to the second elder. It should be about what Zhuowen had done before. Zhuowen's gaze was calm. If the second elder also sided with the seventh elder, Zhuowen would not be polite. At that time, he would not hesitate to use the waning sun at the sea to teach the Pill Tower a profound lesson. However, contrary to Zhuowen's expectations, the second elder only nodded calmly. Then he pointed at Zhuowen and said with a smile, "You are Zhuowen, right? Elder Ping mentioned you to me. I have some matters to discuss with you. Come with me to the Pill Tower's 10th floor." As soon as the second elder said this, the surroundings instantly became deathly silent. Some people even suspected that there was something wrong with their ears and subconsciously picked at them. The Pill Tower's 10th floor was the highest floor of the Pill Tower. It was also the place closest to the Pill Tower's alchemic fire. It was also the most important place in the Pill Tower. It was said that apart from the Pill Tower's elders, even the Pill Tower's enforcers could not enter the 10th floor, let alone others. But now, the second elder had actually invited an unknown white-clothed youth to the 10th floor. Many people felt that the second elder was joking. "Second elder, you aren't joking with us, right?" The seventh elder smiled embarrassedly. The second elder looked seriously at the seventh elder and said, "Do I look like I'm joking?" The seventh elder's face stiffened. He stood on the spot at a loss. He did not know how to reply to the second elder. As for Feng Ruanjie, who had been casually tossed to the ground by Zhuowen and had been beaten into a pig's head, his body trembled. Originally, he was rather delighted when he saw the second elder come down. He thought that the second elder would seek justice for him. However, the second elder's words made him feel as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. His entire body stiffened. Even he, the son of the seventh elder, did not have the qualifications to enter the Pill Tower's 10th floor. Only his father had the qualifications to enter. But now, the second elder had actually openly invited an outsider to enter the Pill Tower's 10th floor. Moreover, this outsider had just fiercely slapped him. This made Feng Ruanjie feel humiliated. However, Feng Ruanjie was helpless. The second elder had the final say in the Pill Tower now. Since it was the second elder's suggestion, then even his father did not have the qualifications to object. Chapter 2370. Pill Flame, Zhuoxiaoyu, please. The second elder couldn't help but speak up when he saw Zhuowen's indifference. However, Zhuowen frowned slightly. He looked at the second elder and said, "I heard that Elder Peng can solve the problem of that junior of mine. Are you sure?" Everyone looked at Zhuowen as if they were looking at an idiot when they heard Zhuowen's question. One had to know that it was an honor to be able to enter the 10th level of the Pill Tower. However, this white-clothed youth was actually so calm. Moreover, he even questioned the second elder. Wasn't this just courting death? The second elder didn't get angry. He smiled and said, "If you trust me, then follow me to the 10th level. If you don't, then you can leave now." Zhuowen nodded and said, "I'll follow you to the 10th level." The second elder smiled. Then he walked up the Pill Tower with his hands behind his back. Meanwhile, the white-robed Elder Peng came to Zhuowen's side and reminded him, "Brother Zhuo, you really are casual. This is the second elder of the Pill Tower. He's the person in charge of the Pill Tower. The second elder invited me to the 10th level, so he must have a request. Naturally, he needs to show some sincerity. As for me, I just need to verify the authenticity of this sincerity, Zhuowen said indifferently. However, Elder Peng gave him a thumbs up and said, "You really have a personality." When the second elder led Zhuowen to the 10th level, it attracted the attention of many cultivators in the Pill Tower. Clearly, they were all wondering who the white-clothed youth behind the second elder was. It's him? When Zhuowen arrived at the 9th level, he quickly saw a familiar voice. He saw a fat figure haggling with the seller on the high platform in front of the 9th level. Zhuowen wasn't unfamiliar with this fat figure. Wasn't it Ma Yujie? Zhuowen didn't greet Ma Yujie. This fellow was indeed quite capable to be able to enter the 9th level. However, he believed that no matter how capable Ma Yujie was, he shouldn't be able to enter the 10th level. After all, not just anyone could enter the 10th floor. After entering the 10th floor, Zhuowen realized that the space on the 10th floor was not very big. It was only about 100 square meters. However, the instant he entered the 10th floor, Zhuowen felt a terrifying wave of heat wash over him. Zhuowen's entire body felt unbearably hot, as if his internal organs were on fire. This kind of scorching heat was not a pleasant feeling. Swallow this, and the alchemy fire won't reject you. The second elder stopped and handed a green pill to Zhuowen. Zhuowen took the pill and immediately felt a refreshing feeling spreading from his fingertips to his limbs and bones. After swallowing the pill, the burning sensation in his body immediately disappeared. Moreover, his body felt light as a feather and extremely comfortable. After the discomfort subsided, Zhuowen began to size up the mysterious 10th level of the Pill Pagoda. This space wasn't very large, and it was dim and desolate, besides a brazier that was over 3 m wide standing at the center. This space was completely empty, and it was extremely desolate. A strange flame burned in the brazier. This flame was shaped like a pill furnace, and inside the furnace, Zhuowen could vaguely see more than 10 sparkling and translucent divine pills. The medicinal power of these divine pills was extremely rich. Although most of the medicinal power was covered by the restrictions set up in the surroundings, Zhuowen could still vaguely feel how surging the medicinal power of these divine pills was. Level 9 divine pills? Zhuowen muttered. He knew that only level 9 divine pills could have such surging medicinal power. What surprised Zhuowen even more was that these level 9 divine pills were not refined by this flame. Instead, they were consumed by this flame, because as the flames in the pill furnace continued to burn, time continued to pass, and the medicinal power was weakening, and the dozen or so divine pills also began to dim and lose their luster. This is the foundation of our Pill Pagoda. The second elder slowly turned around and pointed at the pill furnace flame in the brazier with his right hand and said in a deep voice, "The huge flame burning at the top of the Pill Pagoda is an enlarged image of this pill fire. You don't have to be confused about this." Seeing Zhuowen's puzzled expression, the second elder explained in a timely manner, "These level 9 divine pills are for the continuation of the pill fire?" Zhuowen asked. The second elder nodded calmly and said, "You guessed right. It is indeed for the continuation of the pill fire. This pill fire was passed down by our ancestors. With this pill fire, you can increase the success rate of alchemy by 50%. Moreover, it is the only pill fire that can refine Tao confirming divine pills." Tao confirming divine pills? Zhuowen's pupils shrank, and he couldn't help but stare at the slightly dim pill fire in a daze. Zhuowen had only heard of the Tao confirmation divine pill in legends. It was said that the Tao confirmation divine pill could help cultivators in the 2 extremes of life and death to reach the Tao confirmation realm, increasing the success rate of reaching the Tao confirmation realm. It could be said that the Tao confirming divine pills were many times more precious than the life and death pill. Unfortunately, this kind of pill was hard to come by in 10,000 years, and Zhuowen had never heard of anyone obtaining a Tao confirming divine pill. Of course, Zhuowen had never heard of a Tao-confirming powerhouse. He only knew that the remains sealed in the blood-stained cliff and the space-time quicksand river were the remains of a Tao-confirming powerhouse. As for a complete Tao-confirming powerhouse, Zhuowen had never seen one. Of course, a Void Sky 9 Ascension cultivator was already a powerhouse that was difficult for him to reach, let alone a more terrifying Tao-confirming powerhouse. At least for now, Tao-confirming divine pills was still a bit far away from Zhuowen. You should have a deeper meaning for telling me about this pill fire, right? Zhuowen calmed down and said lightly. The second elder looked at Zhuowen and sighed softly. I heard from old Peng that you have a junior who walks the path of a tripolar true god. Can you ask that junior of yours to come to the 10th level of the pill furnace? What's the matter? I need to understand the ins and outs of this matter. After ensuring that it's safe, I will bring my junior here, Zhuowen said lightly. This pill fire is the foundation of the pill tower. You have also seen that the pill fire is gradually extinguishing. In order to let it linger on at death's door, we can only continuously use heaven and earth treasures to maintain the life of this pill fire. However, this method is only a temporary measure. The pill fire will extinguish one day. In order to let the pill fire last a little longer, the great elder willingly sacrificed his life to let the pill fire last for half a year. However, after half a year, the pill fire will be extinguished, and the pill tower will gradually decline in the future. Speaking up to here, the second elder suddenly looked at Zhuowen excitedly and said, However, there are records in the ancient books of the pill tower that the energy of a tripolar true god's extreme lightning, extreme fire, and extreme wind can rejuvenate the pill fire. However, it's a pity that there are too few tripolar true gods. I have searched bitterly for hundreds of years, but I have not found a tripolar true god in the 6 desires heavenly territory. In other words, no one has ever cultivated the path of a tripolar true god, because this tripolar true god has its limitations. In the future, it will stop at a tripolar true god and be unable to progress further. Chapter 2371. Transaction Zhuowen came to a sudden realization. So they were here for the extreme Tao power of the triple extreme true god. Second elder, are you sure that the extreme Tao power can make the alchemy fire glow with vitality? Zhuowen asked. The second elder said with great certainty, I'm sure. Although I've never tried it, since the Pill Pagoda's records mentioned it, it definitely can't be wrong. Zhuowen was a bit speechless. Wasn't this second elder too trusting of the Pill Pagoda's records? Of course, as long as your junior can come. Even if he doesn't succeed in the end, I won't treat him unfairly. As he spoke, the second elder took out an exquisite brocade box from his bosom and handed it to Zhuowen. This is my greeting gift to you, junior. Zhuowen casually opened the brocade box and was immediately shocked by the medicinal power emanating from it. Inside the brocade box was a divine pill with green stripes. This divine pill's medicinal power was extremely rich. Zhuowen was sure that this was definitely a level 9 divine pill. This is a level 8 divine pill, snow toad pill. It can effectively increase one's divine power. Its effect is equivalent to a cultivator's divine power after bitterly cultivating for 1,000 years, the second elder said indifferently. Zhuowen looked at the second elder in surprise. This second elder was really generous. He actually gave a level 8 divine pill as a greeting gift. However, Zhuowen also knew that now that he had accepted the greeting gift, it was actually equivalent to agreeing to the second elder's request. Will it be dangerous? Zhuowen muttered. The second elder smiled and said, No, but because the alchemy fire needs the extreme Tao energy as nutrients, it might absorb more. This isn't something that can be done in one go. Moreover, isn't your junior worried about the wind disaster? If the wind disaster descends, he can also be next to the alchemy fire. The alchemy fire will also help him absorb the wind disaster's power. Zhuowen raised his eyebrows. It seemed that the method that Elder Peng said could help him resist the wind disaster should be related to the alchemy fire. If the second elder wasn't lying, this should be a win-win situation. Shuo Xiaoyu, you should call your junior now, right? We still haven't seen that junior of yours. After the second elder promised the benefits, he stared at Zhuowen with a smile. Although the second elder was all smiles, Zhuowen could see a sharp glint in his eyes. He knew that if he lied in the slightest, this smiling second elder would immediately restrain him. Zhuowen shrugged and said, "Don't worry, I'll call him out immediately." As he spoke, Zhuowen waved his sleeve and a black figure shot out from Zhuowen's body. His black clothes fluttered in the wind. The second elder and Elder Peng's gazes landed on the black-clothed Zhuowen. Their eyes lit up when they sensed Zhuowen's dense extreme strength. This extreme power was extremely rich and surging, far stronger than anything they had ever seen before. The second elder arrived in front of the black-clothed Zhuowen. He sized up the black-clothed Zhuowen and placed his right hand on the black-clothed Zhuowen's shoulder. Although the black-clothed Zhuowen felt a little awkward, he still allowed the second elder to put his hand on his shoulder under the command of his original body. After second elder checked for a while, he laughed heartily and said, As expected, it is real God, Senji. I can feel the power of extreme thunder and extreme fire in your split body. The only thing missing is the power of extreme wind. How many wind disasters have you survived?" The second elder looked at Zhuowen with bright eyes and asked, 6. However, my body is suppressing the 7th and 8th wind disasters. Moreover, it's gradually evolving towards the 9th wind disaster. I'm afraid that it'll be the 9th wind disaster very soon. If I can't suppress it then, there might be 3 wind disasters stacked together, Zhuowen sighed softly. Zhuowen wasn't afraid of the 3 cyclones stacked on top of each other. What he was afraid of was the 9th cyclones, which was the most crucial one among the 3. The power of the 9th wind disaster would be even more terrifying than the power of the 8 wind disasters stacked together. It was an increase of several times. It should be known that Zhuowen didn't have the confidence to survive the 9th wind disaster. If there were to be the 7th and 8th wind disasters, he knew that the chances of him surviving the wind disasters by himself were quite slim. I see. The second elder was a little disappointed. It was obvious that Zhuowen had only survived a few wind disasters. There was still quite a distance between him and the 20th wind disaster. Second elder, the alchemy fire won't be able to last for too long. Elder Peng agreed. Second elder nodded and said, I know about that. However, although it lacks the power of the extreme wind, the 2 extreme powers of extreme fire and extreme thunder can extend the lifespan of the elixir fire by quite a bit. As long as you wait for your doppelganger to become a real god triple pole, you can use the power of triple pole to revitalize the elixir fire. Shuo Xiaoyu, if you want to survive the wind disasters here, it's totally possible. The alchemy fire can reduce the power of the wind disasters. It'll be very beneficial for you to survive the wind disasters. Zhuowen looked at the second elder and said, Second elder, I plan to enter the divine Pill secret realm in 3 days. If you want to borrow the extreme power of my clone, you'll have to pay a price. The second elder was stunned. He didn't expect that the young man in front of him would also want to enter the divine Pill secret realm. However, when he thought about how the young man was just a rogue cultivator, it was understandable that he wanted to enter the divine Pill secret realm to try his luck. Tell me, what price do you want me to pay? The second elder said, I wonder if the Pill Tower has a record of the divine Pill distribution map in the divine Pill secret realm. Zhuowen asked. The second elder and Elder Peng's expressions changed slightly. The second elder said seriously, This is the Pill Tower's secret. It can't be revealed casually. I can't tell you about it. Zhuowen shrugged and said, Comparing the divine Pill secret realm's distribution map and the alchemy fire, which one do you think is more important? How about this? I don't need the exact distribution of the divine pill secret realm. I just want the second elder to give me a rough guide. At least, can you give me a guide that can help me avoid danger? Zhuo knew that the pill tower had guarded the divine pill secret realm for countless years, so they must have a distribution map of the secret realm. Otherwise, how could the pill tower protect the divine pill secret realm? And how could the pill tower possess so many divine pills? Everything the pill tower had was given to them by the divine pill secret realm. The higher-ups of the pill tower must have a good understanding of the divine pill secret realm. The second elder furrowed his brows. He looked at the slightly dim alchemy fire and sighed in the end. I promise you, as long as your clone can stay beside the alchemy fire will never stop growing. That's not a problem. However, I have to make it clear in advance. After I pass the 19th wind disaster, I will be teleported away by the power of the great Brahma heavenly palace. I will enter the great Brahma heavenly domain's Tower of Hanno. I will tell you about this first, Zhuo said in a deep voice. Great Brahma heavenly domain? You are from the great Brahma heavenly domain? Elder Peng looked at Zhuo in surprise. Chapter 2372. Guidance map, so that's how it is. Lord Brahma deliberately let you cultivate the three extremes. No wonder. The second elder frowned slightly as he muttered. Zhuo looked at second elder. He felt that second elder wasn't simple right from the start. Looking at him, he should know something about great Brahma. Second elder, is there a problem with great Brahma? Zhuo asked. Second elder looked deeply at Zhuo and said, I'll give you the guidance map. However, after you survive the 19th storm here, you can take the alchemy fire away. Before you advance to Real God 3, the alchemy fire must not leave your side. Once second elder said that, Elder Peng's expression changed greatly. He was about to speak, but was stopped by second elder's gaze. Zhuo looked at second elder in surprise. He didn't expect second elder to allow him to take the alchemy fire away. Although the alchemy fire was on its last breath, he could feel that the alchemy fire wasn't simple. If it was at its peak, it would probably be more terrifying than an extreme flame. Of course, what Zhuo didn't know was that if the alchemy fire could really recover to its peak, it would be much scarier than an extreme flame. At that time, he would definitely be shocked. All right, you can cultivate beside the alchemy fire. If possible, it's best if you can channel your extreme power into the alchemy fire. This will be beneficial to the alchemy fire. I'll come back in 3 days. At that time, I'll bring the guidance map that you want. Second elder was a straightforward person. After he finished speaking, he brought Elder Peng and left the place. Very soon, only Zhuo was left on the 10th level. Zhuo looked at the alchemy fire in front of him silently. He didn't know why, but when he looked at the alchemy fire, it was as though he was looking at a beating heart. The alchemy fire was clearly in the shape of a cauldron, but it actually gave him the feeling of a heart. This feeling made Zhuo feel strange. He looked deeply at the alchemy fire, then sat cross-legged not far away, while the black-clothed Zhuo sat beside the brazier. Although second elder had mentioned that Zhuo should use extreme power to restore some vitality to the alchemy fire, Zhuo didn't do so in the end. The alchemy fire wasn't simple. He didn't dare to rashly follow second elder's instructions. He had to observe for a period of time. Plus, he planned to let his doppelganger's 9th storm descend within 3 days. He felt that the 9th storm was coming soon, but he had been suppressing it. Now that he wasn't suppressing it, the 9th storm would descend. He believed that he could descend the 9th storm within 3 days. He would, when the time came, the alchemy fire studio. Although Zhuo still didn't know if this alchemic fire was really effective against his wind disaster, he knew that it was better to deal with it quickly than to prolong the pain. The 9th wind disaster was bound to descend, and he couldn't keep suppressing it. Rather than trying to weather the 3 storms in another place, it would be better to stay by the alchemic fire. After all, He felt that the second elder was not lying. Time slowly passed. On the third day, the black-clothed Juoin, who was standing beside the brazier, suddenly stood up. A strange black wind began to surge around the black-clothed Juoin. The black wind became more and more terrifying and intense. In just an instant, the black-clothed Juoin was completely engulfed and disappeared. In the corner, the main body opened his eyes and looked at the figure wrapped in the black wind. He knew that the clone had already begun to overcome the wind disaster. Furthermore, he discovered that when the three calamities emerged from within his body, the originally dim alchemic fire in the brazier actually blazed a bit more vigorously at this moment. Then the alchemic fire suddenly shot out and enveloped the black-robed Juoin. If one took a closer look, they would be able to see that the alchemic fire was actually devouring the wind disaster that had erupted from the surface of the black-clothed Juoin. In less than a quarter of an hour, the black wind on the surface of the black-clothed Juoin was completely devoured by the pale fire. After that, the pale fire flew out again and steadily landed in the brazier. At this moment, the pale fire was much more vigorous than before, and it was also much more energetic. Juoin even saw the pale fire actually yawn like a human, as if it had eaten and drunk enough. As for the black-clothed Juoin's three wind disasters, they were completely devoured by the alchemy fire within a quarter of an hour. The clone's wind disaster was also easily overcome. Juoin felt that it was a bit unbelievable. Wasn't this a bit too fast? Generally speaking, a wind disaster would last for at least a few hours or even a few days and nights. However, the pale fire had actually devoured all the calamities that were about to erupt in his body in a quarter of an hour. It was done cleanly without leaving a trace. The clone won't have to worry about the calamities in the future. The main body looked at the pale fire that seemed to be dozing off, and a dazzling light flashed across his eyes. Previously, he was still worried about how to avoid the calamities in the future. Now that he had the pale fire, he really didn't have to worry about the calamities in the future. Haha! Zhuo Xiaoyou's extreme, Dao. True God's calamities are really useful. The pale fire was originally very weak, but now it's actually so energetic. At the entrance, a hearty voice could be heard. Juoin raised his head and saw the second elder coming in with a quaint piece of paper. The second elder's eyes were bright as he stared at the pale fire that had become much more vigorous. He couldn't help but laugh, and he seemed to be extremely happy. This is the guide map of the Divine Pill Secret Land, and I've marked out most of the dangerous places in the Divine Pill Secret Land. Also, you'd better not go to the core area of the Divine Pill Secret Land. Even a 9 steps void sky cultivator would die there. The second elder handed the quaint piece of paper to Juoin and said seriously, "The core area? There's actually such a terrifying place in the Divine Pill Secret Land. Even a 9 steps void sky cultivator would die there?" Juoin furrowed his brows. It seemed like the Divine Pill Secret Land wasn't as simple as he had thought. The core area of the Divine Pill Secret Land is the forbidden area of the Secret Land. Even the ancestors of the Pill Tower have never entered that place. Once you enter that place by mistake, only death awaits you. However, you can stroll around the forbidden area. It's said that the life or death pill will appear near the forbidden area, the second elder said. Juoin's eyes lit up. He cupped his hands at the second elder and said gratefully, "Oh right, second elder, this time when the Divine Pill Secret Land opens, won't the people of the Pill Tower enter it?" The second elder smiled mysteriously and said, "The Pill Tower doesn't need to enter the Divine Pill Secret Land. Every time the Divine Pill Secret Land opens, the Pill Tower's pill fire can automatically swallow a large amount of divine pills from the Secret Land. The Pill Tower will also get a share of the profits." Chapter 2373. Soul Guiding Technique. Juoin was surprised. He glanced at the alchemy flame that was dozing off. He didn't expect the alchemy flame to be so powerful that it could snatch divine pills from the divine pill secret realms. This was the first time he had heard of such a thing. Shu Xiaoyu, I hope you can keep this matter a secret for us, the second elder said to Zhuowen as he cupped his fists. Second elder, you're too polite. Even if you didn't tell me, I wouldn't tell anyone about this. Zhuowen returned the greeting and said, Second elder, I'll leave my clone here with you. I'll take my leave first. Zhuowen chatted with the second elder for a while before leaving the pill tower. Of course, before he left the pill tower, he gave Zhuowen a lot of calamity crystal or veins so that he could cultivate properly. Zhuowen was no longer afraid of the calamity wind, so Zhuowen didn't need to suppress it anymore. According to Zhuowen's estimation, if he was given another decade or so, his avatar should be able to successfully reach the 19th wind calamity. At that time, Zhuowen would be teleported back to the Tower of Hanner. Once he became a third-level true god, he would enter the great Brahma heavenly palace to wait for Mu Chinchua. As long as he became a third-level true god, he wouldn't be afraid of the great Brahma heavenly palace. At least, the great Brahma heavenly palace wouldn't be able to kill him. After leaving the pill tower, Zhuowen found an inn to stay in as he waited for the opening of the divine pill secret realm the next day. The next day at dawn, the huge square beside the pill tower was already filled with people. When Zhuowen arrived at the square, he saw Ma Yuji's fat body in front of him. Brother Zhua, what a coincidence. I didn't expect to see you here. Ma Yuji said. Zhuowen sneered. This guy came to find him on purpose. What a coincidence. Zhuowen replied perfunctorily. Brother Zhua, this time, the life or death pellet will appear in the divine pellet secret realm. Do you want to join forces with me? Ma Yujia whispered to Zhuofeng. Zhuowen shook his head and said, Brother Ma, you worry too much. I have no interest in the life or death pill. Moreover, with my strength, it would be too difficult for me to compete for the life or death pill. Therefore, I will not participate in this matter. Ma Yujia smiled embarrassedly and said, Brother Zhua is too modest. With your strength, how many people here can be your opponent? As long as the two of us join hands, the chances of getting a life or death pill are still very high. Zhuowen shrugged and said, We'll talk about it when the time comes. Hearing this, Ma Yujia did not say anything else. Suddenly, an uproar came from the front of the square. More than a dozen people walked over from the square, and all of them were beautiful women dressed in light muslin. However, these beautiful women all had veils covering their faces, and their eyes were tightly shut. And this group of people was no stranger to everyone. It was Palace Master Jingyun's group. Yao Xiangjuan mixed in with Palace Master Jingyun's group, but she was absent-minded. She was still a little worried about Zhuowen. Not long after Palace Master Jingyun came to the square, many forces also came one after another. However, compared to Palace Master Jingyun, the gap between these forces was too big. There was basically no comparison. When LV Haotian slowly flew over, it caused a big stir again. After all, LV Haotian was a life enlightenment realm expert. In this place, apart from Palace Master Jingyun, there was no third person who could match his strength. Of course, when LV Haotian came, the crowd was not talking about LV Haotian himself, but about the death of Lu Xindian's group 3 days ago. LV Haotian, who was originally in high spirits, naturally had good hearing. When he came to the square, he heard a lot of gossip. He immediately became angry and killed a few people who did not open their eyes. Only then did the surrounding discussions come to an abrupt end. LV Haotian floated in the air. He looked around at the many cultivators in the square and said coldly, Zhuowen, I know you're mixed in with these people, but don't think that I won't recognize you and let you go just because you changed your appearance. No matter where you go, Lu Xindian will not let you go. And today will be the day you die. LV Haotian had just finished his words when a transparent cylindrical bottle appeared in his hand. Inside the bottle, there was a light blue shadow. When Palace Master Jingyun saw the light blue shadow in the bottle, her face changed slightly. She whispered, Could this be martial uncle, what is this? Yao Xiangjuan noticed Palace Master Jingyan's abnormality and quickly asked, "This is the soul drawing technique. It is a very vicious method. It is said that the soul drawing technique can collect the broken soul of a cultivator who has just died. Then, after an extremely complicated refinement, this soul will become an evil spirit. And this evil spirit will trace the soul aura of the murderer before his death and find the real culprit. However, generally, after using the soul drawing technique, the dead cultivator's soul will never enter the reincarnation cycle. This LV Haotian actually used the soul drawing technique on ancestor Lu's broken soul. It is really too ruthless." Palace Master Jingyan looked at LV Haotian in the sky with a complicated expression. "Brother Zhua, you're in trouble. I advise you to run away now. Otherwise, you will have to face LV Haotian later." Ma Yujie, who was standing beside Zhuowen, reminded Zhuowen before disappearing with a swoosh. "That guy ran pretty fast." Zhuowen frowned. It was the first time he heard of the soul drawing technique. Obviously, it was a method to find people. However, the opening of the divine Pill's secret realm was imminent. How could he leave now? When Zhuowen was hesitating, LV Haotian had already opened the glass bottle. Then, the light blue shadow from the bottle rushed out and hovered above the crowd. Suddenly, the light blue shadow seemed to have sensed something. It immediately chose a direction and rushed away at lightning speed. And the direction the light blue shadow rushed was exactly the direction where Zhuowen was. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He didn't understand how the shadow recognized him. When the light blue shadow appeared above Zhuowen's head, all the cultivators around Zhuowen tacitly dispersed. Immediately, an empty space of several feet appeared around Zhuowen. The light blue shadow floated above his head and bared its fangs and brandished its claws. Its eyes were full of resentment. Zhuowen coldly snorted. A terrifying divine soul crushed the light blue shadow. The light blue shadow screamed and immediately disappeared. At the same time, a terrifying murderous intent instantly locked onto Zhuowen. Zhuowen's body trembled. "Little bastard, you really didn't let me down. You really came to the divine Pill's secret realm. Hee, you won't have the chance to enter the divine Pill's secret realm because you are going to die now." LV Haotian's voice was full of murderous intent. Then, a terrifying energy fiercely smashed on Zhuowen's chest. Chapter 2374. Mysterious life divine force from Zhuowen, destroying the light blue shadow to Lu Haotian repelling Zhuowen. All of this happened in a flash. Before everyone could react, Zhuowen had already vomited blood and retreated under Lu Haotian's attack, his face pale. Numerous gazes converged onto Zhuowen, causing an uproar in the surroundings. "It's him? He's actually at the 7th step of the Void Sky Realm. How did he manage to kill Lu Xin Hall's group with this little bit of cultivation?" There were 2 peak 8th step Void Sky cultivators and 1 half-step 9th step Void Sky cultivator. How did he do it? Is there a mistake? It's impossible for a Void Sky 7th step cultivator to kill a half-step Void Sky 9th step cultivator. Even if it's a peak Void Sky 8th step cultivator, it's unlikely. Didn't you see how he blocked Lu Haotian's attack? Although he vomited blood and was injured, he at least blocked it and didn't die. The cultivators around the square all consciously distanced themselves from Zhuowen and Lu Haotian, giving them a large open space. The discussion never stopped from the moment LV Haotian made his move. Most of the people's gazes were all fixed on the seemingly ordinary Zhuowen. "You've already been recognized, yet you still don't show your true face. What's the point of hiding like this?" Lu Haotian had his hands behind his back. Although he was surprised that this little ant could block his attack, he didn't care. From the exchange just now, it could be seen that Zhuowen's strength was indeed extraordinary, but the gap between them was too big. If he wanted to kill Zhuowen, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy, and he returned to his original appearance. He looked coldly at Lu Haotian and said, "Temple Master Lu, this is the territory of the Pill Tower. Private fights are not allowed, right? Are you not putting the Pill Tower in your eyes?" Lu Haotian sneered and said, "Little bastard, you're just an ant. After killing you, I will explain to the person in charge of the Pill Tower." Not far away, Jing Yan's beautiful eyes were closed. She was facing Zhuowen as if she was looking at him. She said in a low voice, "This kid is indeed not simple. However, he won't be able to live for long." Although this Zhuowen had the strength to kill a half-step Void Sky Ninth Ascension. Compared to a life Enlightenment Realm cultivator, a half-step Void Sky Ninth Ascension was like an ant. If LV Haotian wanted to kill Jiu Deng, he would only need half a move. On the other hand, Zhuowen wouldn't be able to kill Jiu Deng without using all of his skills. Therefore, in front of a powerhouse like Lu Haotian, Zhuowen was still like an ant. It wouldn't be difficult for LV Haotian to kill him. "Martial uncle, Zhuowen is my friend. He saved my life. Martial uncle, please give me some face and save Zhuowen." Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful face was slightly pale. She hurriedly pleaded with Jing Yun. Jing Yun frowned and said, "Xiangjuan, Martial uncle can't help you with this matter. If LV Haotian insists on killing Zhuowen, I can't stop him. Moreover, once I stop him, I will anger LV Haotian. At that time, the Divine Pill's secret realm will suffer his revenge. This is not a good plan. Moreover, I have already promised you that I won't make a move against Zhuowen. I really didn't make a move. This is the biggest concession I can make. It's impossible for me to help this Zhuowen." Yao Xiangjuan's face was slightly pale. She bit her lower lip. She knew that Palace Master Jingyan wouldn't make a move because of her. Asking Palace Master Jingyan to make a move was indeed a bit excessive. Yao Xiangjuan knew her own limits. Even if she ran over to help Zhuowen, she would only be a burden. She was too weak. "Do you have any last words? If not, you can go to hell." LV Haotian coldly snorted. His right hand turned into a claw, and surging divine power burst out. This terrifying divine power even contained the power of the heavenly Tao. The power of the heavenly Tao mixed with his own divine power, forming a full force of vigorous vitality. This energy was called the mysterious life divine power by cultivators. The mysterious life divine power was the symbol of stepping into the life enlightenment realm. It also represented that one had officially stepped into the void sky 9 steps. The mysterious life divine power was of a much higher level than divine power. This was the most important reason why the void sky 9 steps was superior to other void sky cultivators. After all, the mysterious life divine power and ordinary divine power were not on the same level. The death enlightenment realm above the life enlightenment realm would give birth to a second type of divine power. This type of divine power was called the mysterious death divine power. The mysterious death divine power's power was above the mysterious life divine power. Moreover, it was even more terrifying than the mysterious life divine power. And after reaching the third realm of the void sky 9 steps, the life and death extremes, the mysterious life divine power and the mysterious death divine power in the body would be combined and transformed into the life and death divine power. Just now, LV Haotian's attack did not contain the mysterious life divine power. So although Zhuowen seemed to be in a sorry state, he did not suffer any serious injuries. However, it was different now. At this moment, LV Haotian was attacking with all his might, and the mysterious life God power was mercilessly spitting out. That throbbing aura caused the hearts of Zhuowen and even the surrounding cultivators to involuntarily jump. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. This was not the first time he had experienced this throbbing emotion. Back then, when he met Mu Qin Shui at the waning moon, he had also been this scared witless. At that time, under Mu Qinshua's attack, he had no power to resist and could only passively defend. In the end, he had to flee in panic. At that time, Mu Qinshua should also be in the life-comprehending realm. However, at that time, Mu Chinchua was seriously injured and could not display 100% of her strength. Now, LV Haotian was also in the same realm. Moreover, his strength was at its peak. The mysterious life divine power he displayed was much stronger than Mu Chinchua at that time, although Zhuowen's strength had also increased a lot during this period of time. Facing a life-comprehending realm expert like LV Haotian, Zhuowen was still somewhat powerless. In addition, Zhuowen's clone was temporarily placed on the 10th floor of the Pill Pagoda. He had no confidence in being able to withstand LV Haotian's attack, unless he used the space-time ability, the waning sun on the sea. However, once he used the space-time ability, he would immediately be exhausted. Even if he had the heavenly domain starry sky essence to consume, the space-time injuries caused by the space-time ability were not so easy to heal. Just as Zhuowen's mind was filled with thoughts, LV Haotian's palm had already descended. The terrifying aura was like countless huge waves sweeping up in the vast ocean, suppressing the surrounding square, causing many of the surrounding cultivators to cough up blood and reveal fear in their eyes. The terrifying killing intent firmly locked onto Zhuowen, making it difficult for Zhuowen to dodge. He could only passively welcome the incoming, terrifying palm. Looking at the palm that was getting closer and closer, Zhuowen sighed in his heart and prepared to use the waning sun on the sea. Chapter 2375. The Divine Pill Secret Realm Opens Rumble. Suddenly, a blazing flame rose in front of Zhuowen and turned into a thick wall of fire. The flame was extremely strong, as if it could burn everything in the world into nothingness. The moment the terrifying palm hit the wall of fire, a crackling sound rang out. Then, the wall of fire collapsed, and the palm formed by the mysterious life divine energy also collapsed. Zhuowen was surprised, and his gaze fell on the front of the square. There, 8 figures walked out. The gray-robed old man at the front slowly withdrew his withered palm. The terrifying wall of fire just now was released by this gray-robed old man. It was also this gray-robed old man who helped Zhuowen block LV Haotian's full-force palm. Zhuowen was no stranger to this gray-robed old man. He was the Pill Tower's second elder. Although the second elder's aura was only at the half-step virtual sky 9th step, Zhuowen knew that the second elder was not as simple as he looked. The wall of fire released by the second elder easily blocked LV Haotian's palm. He knew that the second elder's strength was not weaker than LV Haotian's. Everyone in the square narrowed their eyes and looked at the second elder with a much more solemn expression. The Pill Tower's 9 great elders were not known for their powerful cultivation, but for their alchemy skills. Therefore, although the 9 great elders' cultivation was not high, their alchemy skills were unparalleled in the world. They could refine many precious divine pills. Because the 9 grand elders' alchemy skills were too famous, most cultivators neglected the fact that the 9 grand elders were actually not weak cultivators. Of course, the 9 great elders' cultivation could only be considered above average, and there was still a gap between them and the top experts. However, the second elder, who did not reveal his strength, blocked LV Haotian's attack in one move. This made many cultivators look at him in a new light. Even LV Haotian's pupils shrank. This was the first time he saw the second elder make a move, and it was so powerful. Hall Master LV, the Divine Pill Secret Realm is about to open. Why are you causing trouble in my Pill Tower? The second elder clasped his hands behind his back. His gaze passed through the crowd and fell on LV Haotian and Zhuowen. The second elder first glanced at Zhuowen and then stared at Lu Haotian, his eyes serious and indifferent. Lu Haotian's eyes flickered. He immediately cupped his hands at the second elder and said, "Second elder, you probably don't know. This boy is called Zhuowen. His behavior is extremely vile. Not only did he kill my son in front of everyone, but he also killed many elites of my shrine Lu. This brat directly put his finger on my nose. This is simply intolerable. If I don't kill this brat, where will Shrine Lu's face go? I hope that second elder can give face to my Shrine Lu. Before Lu Haotian could finish his words, he was interrupted by the second elder. Palace Master Lu, you don't have to say these pompous words to me. I once made a rule that private fights are not allowed around the Pill Tower, but you knowingly broke the law. Aren't you looking down on my Pill Tower too much? Do you think the Pill Tower is your Shrine Lu's territory? The second elder said rudely. Lu Haotian was stunned. He didn't expect the second elder to be so angry. In his opinion, Zhuowen was just a nameless nobody. The second elder didn't need to be angry with his Shrine Lu for such a nobody. It wasn't worth it at all. However, the second elder did so. Moreover, from his attitude, Lu Haotian could vaguely see that the second elder seemed to be protecting Zhuowen. Palace Master Lu, if there's a next time, don't blame me for canceling your quota. The second elder said coldly. Lu Haotian also realized the seriousness of the situation. He quickly cupped his hands and said, Second elder, please calm down. This time I was foolish. There won't be a next time. Although Lu Haotian was very unhappy with the second elder's attitude, this was not his territory. He couldn't do as he pleased. If the Pill Tower cancelled his quota, even if he didn't want to, there was nothing he could do. The second elder nodded calmly. Then he looked around and said, Today is the day that the Divine Pill Secret Realm opens. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with the Divine Pill Secret Realm, so I won't go into details. After saying this, the second elder waved his sleeve. Suddenly, the burning alchemy fire above the Pill Tower behind him changed violently. Then it turned into a fire dragon and rushed toward the sky. In an instant, the sky changed color. The fire dragon circled the sky and dyed the whole sky red. The whole sky seemed to be surrounded by flames. It looked gorgeous and terrifying. Everyone in the square looked up at the sky. They knew that the second elder was now using the alchemy fire to open the Divine Pill Secret Realm. At this moment, the other 7 elders behind the second elder were all forming hand seals and helping the second elder to open the Divine Pill Secret Realm. After a while, the fire dragon disappeared into the sky. Then, a huge cauldron-shaped hole appeared in the sky. It was pitch black inside the cauldron. It was about 1,000 feet wide and could accommodate hundreds of people at once. This is the entrance to the Divine Pill Secret Realm. Everyone, please enter the entrance in order. Don't break the order. Otherwise, your qualification to enter the Divine Pill Secret Realm will be cancelled. The second elder took a deep breath and pointed at the hole in the sky. After the second elder said this, all the cultivators in the square immediately rushed toward the cauldron in the sky. Although the cultivators rushed into the sky in a chaotic manner, they didn't forget the second elder's words. They didn't push each other. Instead, they entered the hole in the sky in an orderly manner. Little friend Joie, be careful of that LV Haotian. Judging from his appearance, I'm afraid he won't let you go after entering the Divine Pill Secret Realm. Why don't you not enter the Divine Pill Secret Realm this time, and just stay in the Pill Tower? If you need divine pills, the Pill Tower will give you a certain amount to help you cultivate. When Zhuowen was watching the other cultivators enter the entrance, a voice transmission sounded in his mind. Zhuowen wasn't unfamiliar with this voice transmission. It was from the second elder of the Pill Tower. Second elder, thank you for your help just now. Although your suggestion is good, I don't plan to stay in the Pill Tower. I'll be careful of LV Haotian. Zhuowen replied. Although the Pill Tower would get a lot of divine pills after the Divine Pill Secret Realm closed, Zhuowen knew that most of the good divine pills would be taken by the cultivators who entered the Divine Pill Secret Realm. The divine pills that the Pill Tower could get were of inferior quality and efficacy. Zhuowen was a person who strived for perfection. Therefore, he still planned to enter the Divine Pill Secret Realm and explore it himself. Even if LV Haotian had his eyes on him, he still planned to enter the Divine Pill's secret realm. After all, the way to enter the Divine Pill's secret realm was random. Wen didn't think that his luck would be so bad that he would meet Elvi Haotian as soon as he entered the Divine Pill's secret realm. Moreover, he had the map given to him by the second elder. He was confident that he would gain a lot in the Divine Pill's secret realm. As for the pill tower, he didn't believe that the pill tower would give him unlimited divine pills. Chapter 2376. Extraordinary. Since that's the case, be careful. Seeing that Zhuowen didn't intend to give up, the second elder didn't try to persuade him any further. He only told Zhuowen to pay attention to Lu Haotian. During this time, Yao Xiangjuan also transmitted her voice to Zhuowen. Zhuowen just casually chatted with Yao Xiangjuan and found a reason to end the rumors. Lu Haotian and Palace Master Jingyan had discussed his matter in the restaurant and even planned to cooperate. And Yao Xiangjuan was Jingyan's martial niece. Zhuowen couldn't guarantee that Yao Xiangjuan wouldn't betray him, so he didn't want to get too close to Yao Xiangjuan. Yao Xiangjuan was sensitive to Zhuowen's thoughts. Although she wanted to explain to Zhuowen, she could only sigh in her heart when she saw Zhuowen's cold expression. She knew that the conversation between Jingyan and Lu Haotian had already caused Zhuowen's distrust. Now that Zhuowen was on guard against her, it was normal for him to be wary of her. But Yao Xiangjuan's heart ached. She didn't know why she felt this kind of heartache. Xiangjuan, we should also go in. Palace Master Jingyan reminded the dazed Yao Xiangjuan. Martial aunt, let's wait a little longer. There's still a lot of people here. Yao Xiangjuan's beautiful eyes fell on Zhuowen and said absent-mindedly. Seeing Yao Xiangjuan's expression, Jingyan helplessly shook her head. She could only follow Yao Xiangjuan's temperament. It's almost time to go. Zhuowen saw that there weren't many people in the square. He stepped on the air and flew towards the entrance. Of course, when he set off, he paid special attention to Lu Haotian, guarding against the possibility that this guy would attack him. When Zhuowen flew out, Lu Haotian sneered and followed behind Zhuowen. Zhuowen's heart sank. His gaze fell on the second elder below. He saw the second elder frowning, but didn't say anything. Lu Haotian's behavior didn't violate the rules of the pill tower. The second elder couldn't find any fault with it. Naturally, there was no reason for Lu Haotian to stop following Zhuowen. However, after flying for a while, Zhuowen found that Lu Haotian didn't make a move, but just followed behind him. Zhuowen was relieved, but he didn't relax his vigilance. After all, Zhuowen still didn't know whether Elvi Haotian would suddenly make a move. He had to be wary of this guy. When Zhuowen approached the entrance and was about to enter, a strong sense of danger welled up in his heart. Boom! Elvi Haotian, who was not far behind Zhuowen, suddenly launched an attack and punched towards Zhuowen's back. Yao Xiangjuan was in Palace Master Jingyan's team. She had been paying attention to Zhuowen. Seeing Lu Haotian suddenly attack, she hurriedly said, Zhuowen, watch your back! Even without Yao Xiangjuan's reminder, Zhuowen also knew the danger behind him. Zhuowen twisted his waist and immediately summoned the phagocytosis, which turned into 100 feet in size and blocked behind him. Bang! Unfortunately, Lu Haotian's punch completely poured out his mysterious life, divine power. The phagocytosis was directly blasted away, and Lu Haotian's punch directly smashed toward Zhuowen's chest. If Lu Haotian's mysterious life, divine power smashed into his chest, Zhuowen knew that he wouldn't be able to survive. Zhuowen didn't even think about it. He bent his right hand and used the space-time ability Waning Sun over the sea without hesitation. Suddenly, a terrifying space-time ability filled Zhuowen's body and turned into a vast ocean. Behind him, a bright red waning sun rose from the sea. The waning sun gradually rose, and a terrifying power spread out. The smile on Lu Haotian's face froze, and the punch that was originally thrown out stopped in an instant. Then Lu Haotian found that the aura in his body was boiling violently. Under the influence of the space-time ability, It was about to burst out of his body and burst into a cloud of blood mist at any time. Space-time ability! Lu Haotian's eyes revealed a look of surprise, but soon calmed down. Instead, it was replaced by an even stronger killing intent. No wonder he could kill the half-step Void Sky ninth step of their shrine Lu this time. It turned out that he had mastered space-time ability, and it was such a powerful space-time ability. Lu Haotian knew that this kid was merely at the 7th step of the Void Sky realm, yet he had grasped the ability of space and possessed such terrifying combat strength. If this kid's cultivation was even stronger, then wouldn't it be difficult for even him to suppress this kid? Lu Haotian naturally knew that he had to eliminate the roots as soon as possible. Especially after knowing that Zhuowen was so strong, it was even more impossible to leave him alive. Once he was left alive, he would be a huge disaster in the future. Lu Haotian growled, forcibly suppressing the influence of the waning sun above the sea. Lu Haotian's right foot suddenly stepped forward, and his right fist, which had been stopped by the power of the waning sun, moved again. This punch was the full strength of Lu Haotian's life, and it was also his killing blow. Bang, bang, bang. Wherever this punch passed, the space-time ability was completely out of control, and it was completely unable to leave a trace of this punch. Zhuowen gritted his teeth and pointed his finger again. The waning sun, which had risen to the highest point, began to descend, and the direction of the waning sun was in front of Zhuowen. This waning sun rose from behind and fell in front of him, containing the samsara of the waning sun's rise and fall. Zhuowen naturally paid a heavy price for forcing the waning sun to descend. His face was pale, he spat out blood, and his eyes revealed an extremely painful look. This was the huge after-effect of making the waning sun descend. The waning sun finally fell directly in front of Zhuowen, and Lu Haotian's fist came one after another, smashing heavily into the waning sun. Boom! The terrifying after-effect of the collision turned into violent ripples, spreading in all directions. Some of the cultivators who were close to the entrance, who had originally planned to enter the entrance, exploded into a cloud of blood, missed the moment the ripples approached them. Even some powerful cultivators turned pale and spat out a mouthful of blood the moment they came into contact with the ripples. Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood, and then he saw the waning sun shatter. The moment the waning sun shattered, Zhuowen did not hesitate to take out the space-time wheel and enter the space-time wheel. He immediately disappeared and entered the entrance of the Divine Pill Secret Realm. The moment Zhuowen entered the entrance of the Divine Pill Secret Realm, the waning sun finally shattered, and Lu Haotian retreated hundreds of steps. His fist was completely charred at this moment, trembling slightly, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. What a powerful space-time ability! It actually injured me. Lu Haotian muttered to himself with a gloomy face. Many of the surrounding cultivators were staring at this scene in a daze at this moment. Everyone would never forget the beautiful moment when the waning sun rose and fell. Who would have thought that a mere Void Sky 7th step cultivator would not only survive the attack of a life enlightenment state expert, but also use such a terrifying ability to escape? Chapter 2377. A strange tortoise, Lu Haotian, you're being impudent. Didn't I say earlier that my words fell on deaf ears? The second elder's face sank, and he did not hesitate to release a flame, which turned into a huge flame palm and blasted towards L.V. Haotian. L.V. Haotian's eyes flickered. He didn't answer the second elder's question. Instead, he pushed off with his right foot and entered the entrance. The second elder's attack missed, but there was nothing he could do. Even if he wanted to teach L.V. Haotian a lesson, if L.V. Haotian didn't fight with him, he couldn't do anything. Moreover, he didn't have the ability to close the entrance of the Divine Pill Secret Realm. Once the Divine Pill Secret Realm was opened, it would operate on its own. Until it closed, the Pill Tower wouldn't be able to do anything. The battle between L.V. Haotian and Zhuowen was just a disturbance. Soon, The remaining cultivators once again entered the entrance of the divine Pill's secret realm in an orderly manner. Yao Xiangjuan, who was deeply worried, was also brought into the divine Pill's secret realm's entrance by Palace Master Jingyan. Puchi, below a cliff, a wretched figure fell to the ground. He spat out a mouthful of blood, staining the ground. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy. At this moment, his injuries were extremely serious. LV Haotian could be said to be ruthless. That punch was simply aimed at his life. If it wasn't for Zhuowen forcefully using Waning Sun at the sea, would he still be alive? Moreover, Zhuowen had also used this divine ability in excess. Not only did he raise the sun, but he also made it descend. He had never tried this before, but its power was indeed extraordinary. But, correspondingly, Zhuowen was unable to bear the heavy pressure brought about by the descent of the setting sun, causing his injuries to worsen. Now, Zhuowen's flesh wounds had basically been healed by the heavenly domain's starry sky essence, but the space-time injuries were extremely serious. It was so serious that even if he used the space-time power, he would feel unbearable pain. Sigh, this Lu Haotian is really ruthless. Even though the second elder had spoken first, he still didn't let me go and actually killed me in the end. If I become stronger in the future, I will definitely not let this person off. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy, and his killing intent towards LV Haotian had reached its peak. To Zhuowen, space-time injuries were truly terrifying. He would probably need to slowly recuperate. During this process of recuperation, Zhuowen basically could not mobilize the power of space-time rules. He could only use divine power. Zhuowen sat on a rock and began to look around. He found that he was in a valley surrounded by rock walls, and he was located on the east side of the valley. This valley was overgrown with weeds and looked extremely desolate. In the middle of the valley, there was a crystal clear pool. The pond was azure in color, like a huge sapphire. It was extremely beautiful. Zhuowen took out the map given to him by the second patriarch, and when he realized that this valley wasn't a dangerous place in the divine Pill's secret realm, he felt a lot more relieved. Normally, the opening of the divine Pill's secret realm would last for about 3 years. Within these 3 years, one could explore the divine Pill's secret realm as they wished, and any divine pills they found would naturally belong to them. Swoosh! Suddenly, the blue pool in the middle of the valley splashed out a lot of water, and then 2 broken corpses were thrown out of the pool, falling not far from Zhuowen. Zhuowen noticed that the 2 corpses belonged to a man and a woman. However, these 2 corpses were basically incomplete, and they looked extremely horrifying. Zhuowen's eyes slightly narrowed. He could see that these 2 corpses had died not long ago. They were probably the cultivators who came in before him, and they didn't expect to die in this pool. Moreover, from the looks of these 2 corpses, they were gnawed by some ferocious beast. It seemed that this beautiful pool wasn't as calm as it looked on the surface. Roar! Suddenly, a deafening beast roar came from the pool, and then a towering pillar of water shot up to the sky. Immediately, a black shadow rushed out of the water pillar and rushed toward Zhuowen as fast as lightning. Zhuowen snorted coldly and suddenly pulled out the king's sword from the spiritual ring and swept it out. Suddenly, a water-like sword light poured out and heavily bombarded the black shadow. Ouch! The aggressive black shadow was hit by the surging sword light, and it actually cried out in pain like a human. Then it directly smashed into the rock wall behind it, and its whole body was embedded in the rock wall. Zhuowen finally saw the true face of this black shadow. It was actually a huge tortoise. Moreover, this tortoise was completely different from ordinary tortoises. Its body was half a person's size, and the tortoise shell seemed to be made of black iron, emitting a cold and sharp aura. The head of the tortoise that extended out from the tortoise shell was also not an ordinary tortoise's head. It actually felt like a dragon's head. Moreover, although Zhuowen had sent this strange tortoise flying with his sword, his king's sword actually shook violently, as if it couldn't bear it anymore. It could be seen that this strange tortoise's shell was too hard. Ouch! Ouch! It hurts, your Lord Tortoise. The strange tortoise that was embedded in the rock wall kept struggling to get out of the rock wall and rolled on the ground. Zhuowen slightly frowned. He was afraid that this strange tortoise was a trick, so he took a step forward and mercilessly kicked it with his right foot. Then the tortoise wailed and was kicked away again, and then heavily smashed into the rock wall behind it, and was embedded in the rock wall again. And this time the tortoise was embedded even deeper. Even if its 4 limbs kept struggling, it still couldn't get out. I say, why are you like this? I'm telling you, you can't do anything more than 3 times. If you dare to touch Lord Tortoise again, I'll kill you. The tortoise once again dug into the rock wall and unceremoniously said ruthless words to Zhuowen. But just as the tortoise finished speaking, Zhuowen's right foot unceremoniously stepped over and directly stomped down into the small hole that the tortoise had smashed out. The tortoise was almost unable to move and was even more embedded into the rock wall. This time the tortoise completely lost its temper and hurriedly begged for mercy. My little ancestor, I was wrong, okay? I was really wrong. Please don't step on me. I'm scared. I'm scared. Zhuowen was speechless as he looked at this superb tortoise. This guy had no filter on his mouth. How could he be the same as Xiao He and the Blood Immortal? Did you kill those 2 people? Zhuowen pulled out his right foot and asked as he pointed at the 2 corpses that were thrown out of the pool. The tortoise furtively looked at the 2 corpses and hurriedly said, Ouch! You've wronged me. I've never eaten people. Really, human flesh doesn't taste good. Don't talk nonsense. Zhuowen kicked the tortoise again and said indifferently, In this pool, other than you, what other ferocious beast could eat them? If you're lying, I'll kill you directly. Chapter 2378. Roasted Tortoisewin sneered. He raised the king's sword in his right hand and pulled out the tortoise that was embedded in the rock wall. Immediately after, he slashed at the tortoise again and again. When the tortoise saw that the situation was not good, it immediately shrank back into the tortoise shell and did not come out, leaving only the shell outside. Bang! 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 Zhuowen slashed out again and again, landing on the surface of the tortoise shell. Sparks constantly flew out, making for a beautiful and colorful sight. Bang! Zhuowen slashed at the tortoise shell for the last time. With a bang, the tortoise shell flew out and smashed into the ground, not far away. At this moment, Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He found that there were traces of cracks on the surface of the king's sword. On the other hand, the tortoise shell was not damaged at all. Although the king's sword was not a secondary heaven-breaking divine artifact, it was not comparable to an ordinary void sky divine artifact. Its power was even more powerful. However, when he used the king's sword to slash at the tortoise shell, it was actually almost destroyed by the king's sword. This tortoise shell was too hard, wasn't it? Thinking of this, Zhuowen waved his sleeve and immediately summoned 2 divine swords. These 2 divine swords were naturally the Thunderfire Sword and the Blood Immortal Sword. These 2 guys had been staying in the Songlan secret realm and had been consuming Zhuowen's resources. Now they should do something. Kid, what did you call us for? Xiao He sat on the Thunderfire Sword, and her gaze involuntarily fell on the tortoise shell not far away. This tortoise shell is very hard. Help me split it open. Zhuowen pointed at the tortoise shell and said, You want to split this Lord Tortoise? Lord Tortoise, let me tell you, I am the #1 mount under Di Danhua. You, a mere ant, want to split this Lord Tortoise? You are simply lying through your teeth. If this Lord Tortoise saw that you were too weak and did not want to fight, would you still be alive? A triumphant voice came from the tortoise shell. Zhuowen was speechless. This tortoise was simply a wretched bone. Its mouth was even more wretched than Xiao Hei's. It obviously could not beat him, but it insisted that it did not want to fight. Wasn't it too proud? However, Zhuowen was rather interested in the Di Danhua's Di Danhua. Who is Di Danhua? Zhuowen asked. You don't even know Di Danhua. Di Danhua is... The tortoise seemed to have realized something. He quickly shut his mouth and said indifferently, "You want to trick me? I'm telling you, there's no way. Get out of here before I don't want to do anything." While Xiao was Xiao Xiao was the king as lord. As he looks, Xiao says, "Blackie, this cowardly tortoise's shell is very hard. My king's sword hacked at it dozens of times and almost broke the sword." Zhuo Wen pointed at the cracked king's sword to Blackie. Blackie sneered and said, "Kid, aren't you just a coward? What's so difficult about it? Little blood disciple, go get some props." Little blood disciple looked at Xiao Hei's eyes and quickly nodded. Then he disappeared from where he was. After a while, the blood celestial sword returned with several small stone pillars. The blood celestial sword was very nimble. Soon, the stone pillars were set up into a grill. "Boy, I'm counting on you for the flame." Blacka laughed evilly at Zhuowen. Soon after, it rushed to the side of the tortoise. With a flick of its sword, the tortoise shell was lifted up by it. It flew into the air and landed on the grill. Zhuowen, on the other hand, summoned the void sky divine fire in his body. It burned fiercely under the grill. The lush flame looked extremely horrifying. The tortoise, obviously, did not know the intentions of Zhuowen and Xiao Hei. It was still hiding in its shell and laughing. But soon, it felt that something was wrong. The tortoise shell was getting hotter and hotter, and its whole body was burning as if it was in a furnace. Ouch! Who is it? Who is setting the fire outside? The tortoise shouted. Unfortunately, no one responded. It felt that something was wrong. Coupled with the rising temperature of the tortoise shell, it was almost suffocating. Master Tortoise can't take it anymore. F***CK. Finally, the tortoise poked its head out. Then, it saw a scene that it would never forget in its life. Its shell was tied up on a grill, and there was a big fire burning under the grill. Wasn't this a roasted tortoise? After a long silence, the tortoise looked up to the sky and howled like a hungry wolf. This howl was filled with grief, indignation, and the feeling of having no love left in this life. The tortoise wanted to break free. Unfortunately, there was a powerful restriction around the tortoise shell. The tortoise could not break free at all. "How dare you insult me? This is equivalent to insulting the imperial elixir fire. All of you will be drowned in a pig cage." The tortoise also noticed the white-robed young man standing in front of it. It could not help but roar. Zhuowen revealed an innocent expression and said, "This was not my idea. It was him." As Zhuowen spoke, he pointed behind the tortoise. The tortoise turned its head in confusion. It just so happened to see two divine swords floating behind him. One of the divine swords exuded the energy of lightning and fire. There was a Xiao Hei dog sitting cross-legged on the hilt of the divine sword, looking at the tortoise mockingly. As for the sword spirit of the other divine sword, it was diligently massaging the shoulders and back of the Xiao Hei dog. This scene was very strange. "Yoho, my family's pitiful little tortoise. I'm really sorry for tying you to the grill and roasting you. However, I've never tasted a roasted tortoise before. I want to try it today, so I'll have to ask little tortoise to satisfy my craving. I'll have to bear with it and let the void sky divine fire cook it. I want to taste it." Xiao Hei laughed mischievously. Seeing Xiao Hei's mocking smile, the tortoise trembled. This Xiao Hei dog seemed to be even more vicious than itself. The tortoise hurriedly squeezed out a smile and said, "I say, big brother dog, tortoise meat is not delicious. Trust me, don't roast it." "Big brother dog? Who are you calling big brother dog?" Xiao Hei suddenly jumped, and all the hair on its body stood on end. It looked at the tortoise with extreme hostility. Xiao Hei hated being called a dog the most. It felt that this title was a kind of insult. The tortoise's expression stiffened, and it hurriedly corrected itself. "My lord, I was wrong. Please let me go. Tortoise meat is really disgusting. I'm not lying to you." Xiao Hei sat back down on the hilt of the sword and crossed its legs. It looked as if it was in its 70s or 80s, and it completely ignored the tortoise's pleas for mercy. "Tell me about those 2 corpses. What's going on?" Zhuowen asked. The tortoise was much more obedient now, although the flames roasted it below made it sweat profusely, and it was in so much pain that it wanted to die. It really couldn't act tough now. Yes. I was the one who killed those 2 corpses, and I was also the one who ate their meat. Although I swore that I wouldn't eat meat and would only eat vegetables, these 2 guys were like lambs in a tiger's den. I couldn't resist, so I ate them. You can't blame me for this. They were the ones who delivered themselves to me. Chapter 2379. Xingyan Basket. Zhuowen nodded. The cultivation of the man and woman was not high, so it was reasonable for them to die in the hands of this tortoise. However, what surprised Zhuowen was that the turtle shell was too hard. It was definitely the hardest turtle shell that Zhuowen had ever seen. Even the king's sword was almost broken. Zhuowen knew that this tortoise's origin was not simple. However, this tortoise's strength was a bit too weak. It was probably around void sky, 6 levels. Why do they want to go to the bottom of the pool? Zhuowen asked indifferently. The tortoise froze and then fell into silence. Zhuowen didn't pursue the matter. Instead, he silently looked at the tortoise. The void sky divine fire was still burning. This fellow wouldn't be able to endure for much longer. Sure enough, 2 hours later, the tortoise began to twist its body. It was clearly unable to endure the terrifying temperature. "As long as you tell me the purpose of those 2 people entering the pool, I'll let you go," Zhuowen said patiently. The turtle looked at Zhuowen and hesitated for a long time. In the end, it couldn't bear the roasting of the flames and hurriedly said, "It's burning me to death. I'll tell you everything. Quickly put me down." Zhuowen waved his sleeve and extinguished the fire under the grill. Then he looked at the turtle and said, "Speak." The turtle sighed and said, "Those 2 fellows came for the Nebula Basket rock mine. I don't know how those 2 knew that there was a Nebula Basket rock mine in the pool. You must know that this place is already considered an extremely remote place, yet it was still found by those 2. Star Flare Basket rock mine." Zhuowen's eyes lit up with joy. Zhuowen had heard of the Celestial Flame Basket rock mine before. It was a supreme grade artifact forging material. It was said that any artifact that was added into the Celestial Flame Basket rock mine would eventually transform into a secondary heaven-breaking divine artifact. It was a 1 in a million artifact forging materials in the universe. He didn't expect to find such a good item as soon as he entered the divine pill secret realm. It seemed like his luck was not bad. "Take me there," Zhuowen said indifferently. "Then you should let me go," the tortoise hurriedly said. Zhuowen sneered. With a wave of his sleeve, he opened the restrictive spell around the tortoise. However, he didn't release the tortoise. Instead, he grabbed it with one hand. "Bring me there now. I'll let you go after we find the Nebula Basket rock mine." As Zhuowen spoke, he gave a look to Xiaohei and the Blood Immortal. The 2 of them turned into 2 rays of light and circled behind Zhuowen. Zhuowen took a step forward and plunged into the depths of the azure pond, causing countless splashes. After the tortoise had been trained, it was much more well-behaved. However, its mouth was not inferior to Xiaohei's at all. Along the way, it kept talking about Master Tortoise, which gave Zhuowen a headache. As he continued to dive deeper, the pool became darker and darker. "We're almost there." Suddenly, the turtle hurriedly said. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and released his powerful divine sense. Immediately, he discovered that about 100 meters ahead of him, there was a cliff that rose from the ground. This cliff stood at the bottom of the pool and looked very ordinary. "It's here." Zhuowen pointed at the cliff and said, "Yes, the Nebula Basket rock mine is inside this cliff. However, there is very little of it. You can go inside and look for it." The tortoise nodded and said. Zhuowen nodded and approached the cliff. Soon he landed on the cliff. A sense of crisis immediately rose in Zhuowen's mind. Then, a huge tentacle suddenly grabbed from the depths of the cliff and instantly wrapped around Zhuowen's waist. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. The blood immortal sword and thunder fire sword beside him turned into 2 rays of sword light and instantly cut the tentacle into countless pieces. Blood splattered everywhere. A painful roar came from the depths of the cliff. Then, more tentacles swept out and instantly blocked Zhuowen's path of retreat. "This is the Nebula Basket Rock Mine you were talking about." Zhuowen coldly looked at the tortoise. The latter's body trembled. Zhuowen ignored the tortoise. He pulled out his emperor sword and swung it. All the tentacles that swept over were all chopped into pieces. At the same time, Zhuowen took out the void-destroying meteor and 9 extinction divine rune sword. Using his powerful divine sense, he controlled the 2 secondary heaven-breaking divine tools to continuously destroy the surrounding tentacles. Roar! In the depths of the cliff, the fierce beast seemed to be enraged and suddenly rushed out. Only now did Zhuowen see the true appearance of the fierce beast. The appearance of the fierce beast is very similar to a huge octopus. However, the surface of its huge head is covered with strange barbs. The fierce beast has no eyes. However, it has a huge malevolent mouth. The huge mouth is filled with sharp fangs. It looks extremely fierce. Countless tentacles instantly sealed the surrounding space. Then they swept toward Zhuowen. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy. He still has a space-time injury on his body. Currently, it is very difficult for him to mobilize the space-time power. It is very difficult for him to dodge these tentacles with his cultivation alone. Zhuowen waved his sleeve and took out the space-time wheel. His feet stepped on the space-time wheel. Instantly, the space-time wheel disappeared and the surrounding space-time was distorted. Tentacles swept over, but Zhuowen was like a shadow. He constantly flashed and dodged these invading tentacles. Every time Zhuowen dodged a tentacle, the surrounding divine swords would mercilessly cut off the tentacles. In an instant, the entire cliff was flooded with blood. Zhuowen, with the help of the space-time wheel, was constantly approaching the fierce beast's head. Boom! The fierce beast opened its mouth and spat out a dark, green poisonous arrow. It immediately rushed towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen coldly snorted. He took out the phagocytosis in front of him and blocked the poisonous arrow. After blocking the poisonous arrow, the space-time around Zhuowen distorted. He disappeared behind the phagocytosis and appeared on the fierce beast's head. Silencing meteor, 9 extinction divine rune sword, blood immortal sword, thunderfire sword, and the king's sword in his hand all slashed out, mercilessly leaving merciless marks on the fierce beast's head. Suddenly, Zhuowen opened a huge hole in the fierce beast's head. Then he drilled into the hole. The 5 weapons beside him were like drills, constantly drilling the bloody hole deeper and bigger. The fierce beast kept roaring, but it was useless. Zhuowen was like a madman. He kept going into the fierce beast's body through the bloody hole. Whoosh! Zhuowen suddenly drilled out from the other side of the fierce beast's head. He actually directly penetrated the fierce beast's head. Roar! The fierce beast looked up to the sky and roared. Then its body twitched and it completely lost its breath. The cliff was already filled with blood. The smell of blood was extremely pungent. Zhuowen threw the tortoise on the ground. His eyes were slightly red. He coldly said, "It seems that you also want to die. You actually tricked me?" The tortoise looked at the fierce beast being dealt with just like that. It was shocked. However, after feeling the killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes, it quickly said, "You misunderstood. I didn't lie to you about the cosmic flare basket rock mine. It's in this cliff. I'll take you there." As it spoke, the tortoise pointed to the depths of the cliff. "I'll believe you one more time. If there's any falsehood, I'll turn you into a real roasted tortoise." Zhuowen coldly said and drilled into the depths of the cliff. The depths of the cliff were filled with the fierce beast's blood. The blood of the fierce beast was extremely pungent. Zhuowen simply shut off his sense of smell. Chapter 2380. Origin Recovery. Pill. There was no seawater in the deepest part of the cliff, and the environment was similar to an empty plain. However, the air here had a salty smell. Zhuowen looked around and shockingly discovered that the surrounding rock walls were embedded with irregular pieces of ores that were shining with a dark blue light. Zhuowen was not unfamiliar with these ores. Wasn't this the cosmic flare basket rock mine that he was looking for? Moreover, the surrounding rock walls were not small, and the cosmic flare basket rock mine reserves were so abundant that even Zhuowen was a little dumbfounded. One had to know that the cosmic flare basket rock mine was a refining material that many cultivators dreamed of in the outside world. Not just anyone could possess a substandard, heaven-breaking divine artifact. Unless one was very wealthy or a high-ranking member of a large force, it was impossible for ordinary cultivators to obtain a substandard, heaven-breaking divine artifact. There were many void Heaven 8 Steps experts in the galaxy, but they did not have a single substandard, heaven-breaking divine artifact. There were very few people like Zhuowen who had 3 substandard, heaven-breaking divine artifacts at once. Moreover, Zhuowen did not obtain them casually. He had risked his life to obtain them. However, the cosmic flare basket rock mine could allow a void heaven-breaking divine artifact to become a substandard heaven-breaking divine artifact with a 100% success rate. Its value could be imagined. It could be said that this amount of cosmic flare basket rock mine was definitely a huge fortune to Zhuowen. Its value was comparable to the heavenly domain starry sky essence that Zhuowen obtained in the great Brahma domain's training grounds. After all, the cosmic flare basket rock mine reserves here were simply too abundant. Xiao Hei's eyes widened as she muttered to herself, "Kid, you're rich." The value of these cosmic flare basket rock mines is definitely beyond our imagination. Zhuowen nodded and said, "Help me excavate these cosmic flare basket rock mines." After saying that, he turned into a gust of wind and began to excavate the cosmic flare basket rock mines on the rock walls in a frenzy. Xiao Hei cursed in a low voice and unhappily followed behind with the blood immortal sword to excavate the cosmic flare basket rock mines on the other rock walls. As for the tortoise, it had already been thrown aside by Zhuowen. It kept struggling with its back facing the sky, but it just couldn't get up. Of course, this tortoise had become like this because Zhuowen had placed a restriction on it. No matter how much it struggled, it would not be able to get up. "Don't be in such a hurry to snatch it. Help me get it down first," the turtle hurriedly said. Unfortunately, Zhuowen and Blackie ignored the tortoise's words. They didn't care at all. Not long after, Zhuowen, Xiao Hei, and the others had stripped all of the cosmic flare baskets in the mine. Zhuowen was in a good mood. Soon after, he arrived in front of the tortoise, picked it up, and asked, "What is your identity?" The tortoise's eyes flickered, and its 4 limbs kept struggling. It snorted coldly and said, "If I tell you my identity, you'll be scared to death. However, my identity can't be revealed casually. You've already taken the thing, so you can leave now." Zhuowen smiled, not minding the tortoise's stubbornness. He said, "Then who is the imperial pill fire that you mentioned just now?" The tortoise's eyes changed, and it said coldly, "Did I say that? You might have misheard the name." Zhuowen's eyes turned cold, and he said, "You don't want to say it? Do you still want to experience the taste of a roasted tortoise?" The tortoise turned its head and ignored Zhuowen. Zhuowen frowned slightly. This tortoise seemed to have different feelings for the imperial pill fire. Although this was the first time he had heard of the imperial pill fire, he felt that the imperial pill fire mentioned by this tortoise should be an extraordinary figure. However, this tortoise was very stubborn. He was afraid that even if Zhuowen used the same trick again, he might not be able to make this tortoise open its mouth. Thinking of this, Zhuowen decided to take this tortoise with him. Perhaps it would be of help to him in the divine pill secret realm. "What are you doing? What are you doing?" When Zhuowen stuffed the tortoise into his spirit ring, the tortoise kept struggling. Zhuowen didn't care about it, and he directly stuffed it into his spirit ring. This tortoise's shell was definitely the hardest thing that Zhuowen had ever seen. Even the phagocytosis in his hand might not be as hard as this tortoise's shell. Perhaps at a critical moment, it could help him block some danger. Of course, this was just a random reason that Zhuowen came up with. He mainly felt that this tortoise was unusual, and he shouldn't miss any opportunity. Putting away the tortoise, Zhuowen left the pool. After leaving the pool, Zhuowen followed the exit of the valley and left the secluded valley. At the same time, he secretly used his divine consciousness to scan the guide map that the second elder had given him. Although this guide map only marked the dangerous areas in the divine pill secret realm, Zhuowen could roughly estimate the distribution of the divine pills by analyzing the distribution of these dangerous areas. Although there might be many mistakes, it was enough to figure out the general distribution of the divine pills. This was a desert, and it was full of desert. At a corner of the desert, there was a dilapidated building. At this moment, there were nearly 100 cultivators fighting inside the building. Before Zhuowen arrived at this building, he faintly smelled a rich medicinal fragrance. He knew that there must be divine pills in this building. When Zhuowen arrived near the building, he discovered that there was a stone statue erected in the middle of the building that was about 10 feet tall. This stone statue looked ferocious, and its face was ferocious. Its mouth was wide open, and divine pills were spat out from this stone statue's mouth. Every time a divine pill was spat out, it would cause a commotion among the cultivators. At the same time, many cultivators died. Level 5 divine pill, origin restoration pill. Zhuowen looked at the divine pill spat out by the stone statue and recognized it at a glance. It was a level 5 divine pill, origin restoration pill. Zhuowen was not interested. Level 5 divine pills were too unattractive to him. This thing was better than nothing, so he naturally didn't plan to fight for it. Moreover, the cultivation of most of these cultivators was not high. Among them, the highest cultivation was only around the void sky, 5th stage. As long as Zhuowen wanted to, he could kill these cultivators with a single palm strike. Bang, bang, bang. Continuous sounds of fighting rang out. This group of cultivators was obviously in a killing frenzy. In order to fight for the newly produced level 5 divine pills, they simply used all their means and didn't care about the consequences. There are even some cultivators who were seriously injured. Not only did they not escape, but they also fought even more fiercely. This was no different from suicide, and Zhuowen couldn't understand it. Originally, Zhuowen didn't plan to pay attention to it. However, when he saw the abnormalities of these cultivators, he felt strange. It was only a level 5 divine pill. Was there a need for these cultivators to fight so desperately? Let's go in and take a look. After hesitating for a moment, Zhuowen stepped with his right foot and entered the building. Moreover, he unreservedly released the aura of the Void Sky 7th stage to intimidate these cultivators. Whoosh! Whoosh! Chapter 2381. Stone statue. These cultivators were all below the 5th step of the Void Sky stage, and they actually attacked Zhuowen without any regard for their lives. If Zhuowen did not release his aura, he could understand. However, he had already released the aura of the 7th step of the Void Sky without reservation, but it was still useless. Zhuowen suddenly blasted out a few palms, knocking out the cultivators who were pouncing at him. He began to feel that something was wrong. This was because the moment he knocked out these cultivators, the cultivators who were originally fighting in front of him all stopped and looked at Zhuowen with unfriendly gazes. Kill! These cultivators actually acted in unison, all of them rushing toward Zhuowen. They actually ignored the divine pill and seemed to have the intention of killing Zhuowen. Zhuowen furrowed his brows. Were these fellows crazy? Thinking of this, Zhuowen waved his sleeve and released the phagocytosis, which surrounded his body. These cultivators did not have any deep grudges with him, and he also realized that something was wrong, so he did not plan to kill them. He only wanted to block this group of people first. Boom, 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 boom. One attack after another came down like rain, and all of them gathered on the phagocytosis around Zhuowen. Although these cultivators' attacks were majestic, it was a pity that the gap between them and Zhuowen was too great, so all of their attacks were easily blocked by the phagocytosis. Zhuowen couldn't help but glance at the ferocious-looking stone statue in front of the building. He realized that the stone statue's mouth had closed at some point in time. Furthermore, the mouth was curled up as though it was smiling. Zhuowen looked at the crazy cultivators around him again. He roughly guessed that all of this should be the doing of the stone statue. Zhuowen waved his sleeve, and a surge of divine power gushed out. Then it turned into a violent gust of wind that spread out in all directions. Instantly, the surrounding crazy cultivators were pushed back by this gust of wind, and they all fell to the ground in a sorry state. The phagocytosis above Zhuowen's head took a step forward and rushed towards the fiendish stone statue. Rumble! Arriving in front of the stone statue, Zhuowen did not hesitate to throw a punch at the stone statue's face. However, Zhuowen quickly realized that his fist energy had hit nothing because the stone statue had already disappeared in front of him at some point in time. Boom! Then, a gust of wind blew from Zhuowen's back. Zhuowen snorted and waved his sleeve. Phagocytosis landed behind him. Bang, bang, bang. The wind behind him instantly punched the phagocytosis 3 times, each punch more terrifying than the last. Zhuowen let out a muffled groan. His body pressed against the phagocytosis, and he couldn't help but take a few steps back. His gaze landed in front of him, and only then did he realize that the statue was supposed to be motionless. At this moment he appeared in front of him, alive and well, with a strange smile on his face. Bang, bang, bang. The stone statue's attack did not change. It rushed in front of Zhuowen, and its fist energy fell like a torrential rain, smashing into the phagocytosis. Zhuowen could only barely block the stone statue's attack with the phagocytosis in his hand. He was extremely shocked in his heart. How could this stone statue be so powerful? Boom! Zhuowen retreated a few hundred steps, while the 100 or so cultivators all gathered together. Cooperating with the stone statue, they attacked Zhuowen with all their might. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. He had suffered a space-time injury because of LV Haotian, and he was far from recovering. Now he could not display his full strength, and this stone statue's strength was not ordinary. It was comparable to the peak of the Void Sky 8-step. If Zhuowen was still at his peak, he would not be afraid of this stone statue. However, he could not use the power of space-time now. He was only slightly stronger than an ordinary Void Sky 7th-step cultivator. His strength was greatly reduced, and it was indeed difficult for him to encounter this stone statue. Let's get out of here first. Zhuowen punched out, and a terrifying wind blasted the surrounding cultivators away. He immediately unfolded his torch dragon wings and left the place like a bolt of lightning. However, the stone statue obviously did not intend to let Zhuowen go so easily. The stone statue cackled, and its speed was even faster than Zhuowen's. It arrived in front of Zhuowen and punched out, bringing with it a gust of wind. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy. The stone statue's attack was extremely tricky. It blocked Zhuowen's momentum. If Zhuowen wanted to avoid the stone statue's attack, he had to retreat. Once he retreated, he would lose the opportunity to escape from this place. There was a group of cultivators behind him. Although Zhuowen did not take these cultivators seriously, they were enough to block Zhuowen for a few breaths of time. At that time, the stone statue would naturally be able to catch up. Then it would be wishful thinking for Zhuowen to escape. A cold light flashed in Zhuowen's eyes. He did not avoid the stone statue's punch. He suddenly released his phagocytosis and immediately punched out. Boom! The terrifying punch passed through the phagocytosis and fiercely blasted into Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen groaned and spat out a mouthful of blood. He forcibly endured the punch. Immediately after, the torch dragon wings suddenly spread out. His speed instantly soared to the extreme, and he quickly bypassed the stone statue. The stone statue obviously did not expect Zhuowen to use this move. The moment Zhuowen bypassed Zhuowen, its body stiffened. It did not stop Zhuowen at all. Whoosh! Just like that, Zhuowen completely left that area. Then the torch dragon wings did not stop and quickly flew into the distance. By the time the stone statue reacted, Zhuowen was already gone. Roar! The stone statue's ferocious face revealed anger. It seemed that there was a restriction in this building, and he could not leave at all. He could only watch as Zhuowen gradually disappeared into the distance. The crazy cultivators in the building continued to kill each other. The dead cultivators were devoured by the stone statue. As they were devoured, the stone statue's aura continued to grow stronger. Zhuowen landed in a safe area in the Gobi Desert. His eyes were full of gloominess. The appearance of this building in the Gobi Desert was too strange. Zhuowen did not see such a dangerous place in this place at all. Could it be that the second elder was tricking him? Zhuowen grabbed the tortoise from the spirit ring and said, "Do you know what this is?" Zhuowen showed the image of the stone statue to the tortoise. The tortoise's eyes flickered, revealing a trace of surprise, but it quickly regained its calm and said calmly, "I don't know anything about this thing." "It's useless to ask me." Zhuowen sneered. He did not care about the Emperor Pill fire, but he had to know about the stone statue. After all, he had just experienced a moment of life and death. Although the stone statue was not strong enough to kill him, he had a feeling that the stone statue was not simple. If he stayed there for a long time, something would definitely happen. Moreover, Zhuowen had another idea. He did not believe that there were no treasures in such a dangerous place. He later thought about it. The places that the second elder had marked for him were all absolutely dangerous places. In other words, there were no treasures in the guide but pure danger. Since this place was not marked, there was only one possibility. This was not a pure danger place, but a treasure place full of danger. Chapter 2382. Luo Sha. Unfortunately, Zhuowen couldn't use the space-time ability right now, so he wasn't the stone statue's opponent. However, the divine Pill's secret realm would be open for a long time. Zhuowen could find enough divine pills to increase his strength and heal his space-time injuries. At that time, he could find the stone statue to settle the score. Speaking of which, Zhuowen had left behind a surveillance video in the dilapidated building. Zhuowen had a clear understanding of the situation inside. Next time, if Zhuowen wanted to come here again, he could use the mark he had set up to find this place. Now, Zhuowen needed to find a way to heal the space-time injuries on his body. The best way to do so was to find high-grade divine pills. The divine pills in the divine Pill's secret realm were naturally formed. They more or less contained Tao ripples. These Tao ripples were very helpful for Zhuowen to heal his space-time injuries. After Zhuowen consumed a drop of Heavenly Domain's Starry Sky essence, he left this place. He planned to go somewhere else to find other divine pills first. In the blink of an eye, 1 month had passed. In this 1 month, Zhuowen relied on the guide map and understood more than 30% of the divine Pill's secret realm. Correspondingly, he also obtained a lot of divine pills. However, what disappointed Zhuowen was that most of the divine pills he obtained were level 7 and below. As for level 7 and above divine pills, he hadn't seen them yet. It was obvious that it wasn't easy to find high-grade divine pills in the divine Pill secret realm. Although most of the divine pills that Zhuowen had obtained were divine pills below level 7, because the divine pills were naturally formed, they contained a rich Tao aura, and their medicinal effects were much higher than divine pills of the same level. Moreover, the Tao ripples in the divine pills were very beneficial to Zhuowen's space-time injuries. At least in this 1 month, Zhuowen had used the Tao ripples in the divine pills to heal some of the space-time injuries on his body. Now, Zhuowen could use the space-time ability. However, if he wanted to use the space-time ability, it might be a little difficult. Other than that, Zhuowen's divine power had also increased greatly, leaping from the early stage of Void Sky 7th Step to the middle stage of Void Sky 7th Step. Zhuowen believed that as long as he had enough high-grade divine pills, he would be able to reach the peak of the Void Sky 7th Step before the divine pill secret realm closed. Is someone attacking the stone statue? Zhuowen's eyes narrowed as he discovered that the monitoring array formation he had set up around the stone statue had been destroyed. The last scene transmitted by the monitoring array was the battle in the ancient building. The monitoring array was not deliberately destroyed, but accidentally hit by the aftermath of the attack. Lu Haotian. In the last image, Zhuowen saw a familiar figure. It was LV Haotian. Of course, there were other people besides Lu Haotian, but they were all small fries. Zhuowen's eyes became solemn. Just now, he casually glanced at the image and discovered that LV Haotian and the stone statue were evenly matched. This made Zhuowen suspicious. How did the stone statue become so strong? LV Haotian was an expert in the Enlightenment realm, but he was only evenly matched with the stone statue. Although LV Haotian had the upper hand, the stone statue was still undefeated. This already explained the problem. This stone statue increases its strength by sucking the blood essence of cultivators? Isn't this improvement too fast? Zhuowen recalled that in the past month, there were many cultivators who entered the building and fell into madness. They killed each other and were finally devoured. At first, he did not feel the increase in strength of the stone statue. Now that LV Haotian was fighting with the stone statue, he immediately discovered that the stone statue's strength had changed dramatically compared to a month ago. What the hell is that thing? If you still don't tell me, I will kill you at all costs. Zhuowen took out the mysterious tortoise again and asked coldly to the image of the stone statue. This time, the killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes was even more intense, and he almost did not hide it. He knew that this tortoise's character was a bit of a bully. He was afraid that only a tough method could make this tortoise listen to him. Sure enough, after the tortoise felt Zhuowen's killing intent, it subconsciously shrank its neck and finally sighed softly. The divine pill secret realm is actually in a mess. This is not something but a Rakshasa. This thing is crazy, bloodthirsty, and violent. The more it devours flesh and blood, the more terrifying the Rakshasa's strength is. Speaking of this, the tortoise's eyes were very complicated, and there was a trace of sadness in them. Zhuowen frowned slightly. This was the first time he had heard of a Rakshasa. This thing really relied on devouring flesh and blood to quickly increase its strength. According to what you said, as long as this Rakshasa devours enough flesh and blood, it can continue to become stronger and eventually reach the Enlightenment realm or even the heaven-breaking realm. Zhuowen asked doubtfully. The tortoise sneered. Enlightenment realm? Heaven-breaking realm? Aren't you overestimating the Rakshasa and underestimating the Enlightenment realm and the heaven-breaking realm? A creature like the Rakshasa that can only increase its strength by absorbing the flesh and blood of other living beings definitely can't reach the Enlightenment realm. Even the Rakshasa king of the Rakshasa can't reach the Enlightenment realm. At most, it can reach the two extremes of life and death. After all, this world is still fair. Rakshasas don't need to cultivate to obtain powerful strength, but they are still limited to the Enlightenment realm. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly. From the tortoise's words, it seemed that there was more than one Rakshasa, and there was an even more powerful Rakshasa king. Do you have many Rakshasas in the divine pill secret realm? Zhuowen asked tentatively. The tortoise said indifferently, This has nothing to do with you, and you don't need to know. I've already explained this thing to you. Can you let me go now? Zhuowen shrugged and said, No, you'd better stay by my side during this time. Zhuowen ignored the tortoise's angry eyes and stuffed it into the spirit ring again. Then he turned into a breeze and swept toward the ancient building in the desert. LV Haotian was not a fool. If Zhuowen could think of this place as a treasure land, this old guy would definitely think of it as well. This time, this old guy happened to be entangled with the Rakshasa. If Zhuowen didn't take advantage of this opportunity, he would be really stupid. After a while, Zhuowen stopped quite far away from the building and watched the battle in the building from afar. He even restrained his aura. At this moment, LV Haotian was fighting the Rakshasa in the ancient building alone, while the rest of the cultivators stopped outside the building and watched the battle in awe. Their cultivation wasn't high, but they also knew that once they entered the building, if their willpower wasn't strong enough or their cultivation wasn't enough, they would quickly fall into a state of madness. At that time, they would become crazy and sink forever. Zhuowen silently watched the battle between LV Haotian and the stone statue. He found that LV Haotian had completely gained the upper hand and was firmly suppressing the Rakshasa. Chapter 2383 Candle of Death. I should rush in when the two are at their most anxious moment. Zhuowen silently watched the battle in the building. He could see that LV Haotian had not used his full strength. Although the battle between the two was quite fierce, if Zhuowen rushed in now, LV Haotian would definitely seize the opportunity. At that time, Zhuowen would probably be besieged by LV Haotian and Rakshasa. At this moment, the battle between LV Haotian and Rakshasa was getting more and more intense. The terrifying aftermath of the battle was like a monstrous wave, rolling in all directions. However, this building was also quite strange. Although the surroundings looked empty, there seemed to be a layer of powerful membrane, blocking the aftermath of the battle between LV Haotian and Rakshasa inside. There were quite a number of cultivators watching the battle. However, none of them were affected by the battle. This caused the spectators to become restless. Zhuowen's gaze landed behind Rakshasa, where there was a wooden platform. This platform was originally where Rakshasa sat cross-legged. Now that Rakshasa had left, the platform immediately revealed a hole. This hole was big enough for a person to get in. Since Rakshasa had been sitting on this hole, it proved that the inside of this hole was definitely not simple. Zhuowen even believed that the treasures in this treasure land must be hidden in this hole. Zhuowen silently lurked. Although Rakshasa had been suppressed by LV Haotian and seemed to have no power to resist, Zhuowen knew that even if Rakshasa's strength was not as good as LV Haotian, he probably still had some tricks up his sleeve. Otherwise, why would he guard this treasure land? Therefore, Zhuowen was not in a hurry. Even if Rakshasa was on the verge of collapse, he was still not in a hurry. Moreover, as Rakshasa became weaker and weaker, Zhuowen also found that the layer of power that affected the mind in the building had weakened a lot. Many of the cultivators who were originally wandering outside were in an uproar. The reason why they did not dare to enter the building was naturally because of the power that Rakshasa had set up inside the building. This power had a great influence, and cultivators with weak willpower could easily get lost. Now that this power had begun to weaken, they naturally felt it. Now that the influence of this power was gone, and the hole was so close, how could they not be tempted? Whoosh! Finally, a figure wanted to fish in troubled waters. Like an arrow leaving the bow, he shot towards the hole in the building. Since there was a first person, there would naturally be a second. Numerous silhouettes rushed out and rushed towards the hole. For a moment, the originally cold and cheerless building suddenly became much more lively. These cultivators rushed forward in a chaotic manner, causing the rather large building to appear somewhat crowded. LV Haotian, who was dealing with Rakshasa, cursed inwardly. He didn't expect the mind-affecting energy in the building to weaken because of Rakshasa. The reason why he could fight the Rakshasa with such ease was naturally because of this layer of power. This force was very strange. It would affect cultivators below the 8th step of the Void Heaven stage. Although there were quite a few cultivators above the 8th step this time, this force was very powerful. However, the divine pill mystic realm was so big and randomly distributed. The number of 8 steps Void Heaven cultivators that could be found in the same place could be counted with one's fingers. LV Hautian wasn't afraid, even if there were void heaven 8-step cultivators trying to take advantage of him. With his strength, it was naturally easy for him to deal with them. But now it was a mess. LV Hautian could naturally deal with 1 or 2 people. However, almost 100 people had rushed in at once. With so many people, it was basically impossible for him to deal with Luo Sha and obstruct these people at the same time, unless he gave up on Luo Sha and got rid of these cultivators who had rushed in. However, Rakshasa was suppressed too miserably by LV Hautian. He had almost reached the point of exploding with rage. How could he let LV Hautian go? LV Hautian waved his sleeve and immediately blasted out several rays of mysterious life, divine power. Immediately, several people around him were blasted into powder by the mysterious life, divine power. Unfortunately, there were too many people who escaped the net. In addition, the Rakshasa was only targeting him. This made LV Hautian frown, and he was both angry and anxious. Boom! 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 Soon, the first batch of cultivators rushed towards the hole. Suddenly, a strange black flame gushed out from the high platform below the hole. As soon as the first batch of cultivators came into contact with the black flame, their bodies spontaneously ignited. Although some cultivators tried their best to extinguish the flames on their bodies, they sadly found that the more they tried to extinguish the flames, the stronger the flames burned. In the end, they were burned to ashes by the black flame. With so many cultivators dying in an instant, the cultivators who rushed over felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over them. They froze on the spot and looked at the high platform with fear. Under the high platform, a 1-foot-tall black candle appeared. The candle's wick burned with a black flame. Although the black flame looked weak, like a remnant light, no one dared to ignore the candle's flame. One had to know that when the black candle appeared, a black flame gushed out. Moreover, the black flame was not ordinary. Once a cultivator came into contact with the black flame, there was no way to extinguish it. In the end, they could only watch as their bodies were burned to ashes by the black flame. At the same time, the screams became more frequent. The cultivators who had planned to rush towards the hole retreated because of the sudden appearance of the black candle. However, they forgot that behind them was the battlefield of LV Hautian and Rakshasa. Some of the cultivators who retreated were immediately shrouded by the terrifying aftermath of the battle, and then were blown to pieces. LV Hautian did not hold back at all. In other words, he deliberately used his full strength. The aftermath of the battle that spread out was much more terrifying than at the beginning. Many cultivators did not even have time to react before they were blown to pieces by the terrifying aftermath of the battle. In the dark, Zhuowen looked at the black candle that appeared from the high platform and frowned. He felt a chill down his spine from the black flame of the candle. It was clear that the black candle was not simple. "Let me out." Suddenly, the tortoise's spiritual sense came from the spirit ring. Zhuowen frowned and had to release the tortoise. As soon as the tortoise came out, it stared at the black candle that appeared in the building and said gloomily, "Why did the death candle appear? This thing should not appear here." Could it be? When Zhuowen saw the tortoise's expression, he knew that the tortoise knew about the strange black candle. "What is the death candle?" Zhuowen asked doubtfully. The tortoise turned a deaf ear to him. Instead, it looked at Zhuowen seriously and said, "Can you do me a favor? I think you can also see that this is a treasure land. However, it has been occupied by Rakshasa, so this treasure land is full of danger." Chapter 2384. Saliva Zhuowen's pupils shrank, but he sneered and said, "Do you want me to court death? This so-called death candle isn't an ordinary item. Do you think I have the ability to put it away?" Zhuowen had seen the might of the death candle with his own eyes just now. It was already very good that he could break through the death candle's flame. Now he was asking him to put away the death candle. Was he tired of living? The turtle shook its head and said, "Although the death candle's might is terrifying, it's not invincible. This turtle can temporarily control the death candle's flame with my saliva. When the time comes, you can put away the death candle." Zhuowen looked at the turtle with a strange gaze. What was this guy talking about? Why was he so retarded? He actually wanted to use his saliva to control the death candle. Was this a joke? However, Zhuowen saw that the turtle's serious face didn't seem to be lying. His eyes flickered and he said, "Are you sure you want to use your saliva?" The turtle coldly snorted and said, "Have you heard of turtle saliva? That's a supreme treasure. Ordinary turtle saliva can prolong one's life. But this turtle is not an ordinary turtle. This turtle saliva is a rare treasure." Zhuowen's head was full of black lines. He was just treating this turtle as fart. Also, don't worry. Once the death candle leaves the ground, the flame will immediately extinguish. Only when it touches the ground and absorbs the earth energy will it reignite the death candle. The turtle said again. Zhuowen's eyes lit up. If this turtle was right, as long as he put away the death candle, everything would be fine. However, he was still a little worried that this turtle was unreliable. "Boy, you can only trust me now. Otherwise, do you have any other way to enter the treasure land?" The turtle said indifferently, "Then I'll trust you this time." Zhuowen nodded and said. After saying that, Zhuowen began to pay attention to the battle in the building in front of him. He saw that Rakshasa was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Most of the cultivators who had entered had died. Only a small number of cultivators had escaped. These few cultivators' legs were weak outside. They probably didn't dare to enter the building to court death. Roar! The Rakshasa's eyes were red. With a cracking sound, the stone-like skin on his body shattered. A black shadow suddenly shot out from the countless fragments of the clay statue. At this moment, Rakshasa's appearance had changed drastically. He had a handsome face, but his body was covered in ferocious scales. He looked somewhat like a dragon man. Boom! Boom! Rakshasa, who had broken free from the shackles of the stone statue, had undergone an earth-shattering change in his strength. His attacks had become fiercer and fiercer, gradually reversing the situation of Ni Feng's battle. LV Haotian clearly did not expect the Rakshasa to undergo such a transformation. Caught off guard, he was struck by the Rakshasa and fell into a disadvantageous position, retreating repeatedly. Die. Luasha's eyes were red as his sharp claws bombarded LV Haotian like a torrential rain. Lu Haotian snorted coldly. He clenched his right hand into a fist and punched out. The mysterious life divine energy turned into a boundless hurricane and blasted out in all directions. Suddenly, the surrounding space seemed to have exploded, and a rumbling sound rang out. The Rakshasa was immediately forced back dozens of steps by the punch. LV Haotian took a step forward, and his right fist moved along with his body. His right fist, which had been retracted, was like a hunting snake. He punched out heavily and smashed directly at the Rakshasa's chest. The Rakshasa wailed as he was smashed to the ground. LV Haotian naturally pursued the Rakshasa. Based on the principle of taking advantage of his weakness, he planned to kill the Rakshasa immediately. However, just as LV Haotian landed on the Rakshasa's body and was about to blow his head off with a punch, a black shadow rushed in from outside the building at an extremely fast speed and went straight to the hole. LV Haotian was taken aback for a moment, and then the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. He knew that the hole was protected by the strange black candle. Wasn't this person asking for trouble by trying to break in? LV Haotian had also seen the power of the candle of death. Although he was confident in his strength, he was not 100% confident that he could break the candle. However, when LV Haotian saw the true face of the black shadow, waves immediately surged in his heart. He gnashed his teeth and said, "Zhuowen, I didn't expect it to be you. You still dare to appear in front of me today. It seems that the heavens have opened their eyes." LV Haotian recognized Zhuowen, and his mind fluctuated, which was immediately captured by the Rakshasa. The Rakshasa was very smart. The moment LV Haotian's mind fluctuated because of Zhuowen, he roared and burst out with all his strength, blasting at LV Haotian's chest. LV Haotian recognized Zhuowen, and his killing intent surged. In addition, he was too arrogant, so he didn't pay too much attention to the Rakshasa. When the Rakshas's fist hit his chest, he realized it. Unfortunately, it was already too late. Pucci! LV Haotian groaned and flew out, spitting out a mouthful of blood. He gloomily looked at the Rakshasa that got up and continued to rush towards him. The Rakshasa didn't even look at Zhuowen. Obviously, he also realized that Zhuowen's aura was too weak. If he wanted to enter the treasure land, he would definitely be finished. Thus, he simply ignored Zhuowen. Seeing the Rakshasa's indifferent attitude, a smile appeared on Zhuowen's face. Soon after, he took out the tortoise without any trace of politeness and said, "Hurry up and spit on me. If this method doesn't work, I'll use you to block the candle flame and turn you into a real roasted tortoise." The turtle rolled his eyes and said, "Don't worry. This is a matter of life and death. Do you think I'll play around?" With that, the turtle very humanely spat out a mouthful of saliva, which fell on the candle flame. Sure enough, the candle flame became a lot weaker. The turtle spat out saliva again. After spitting several times, the candle flame became extremely weak. It hurriedly said, "Hurry up and put it away." Zhuowen's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He grabbed the candlestick and immediately put it into his spirit ring. Moreover, Zhuowen also found that the death candle was indeed, as the turtle said. After putting it away, the candle flame was indeed extinguished. After putting away the death candle, Zhuowen didn't hesitate. He turned into an afterimage and entered the cave. At this moment, the Rakshasa rushed towards LV Haotian. LV Haotian was also ready to face the Rakshasa. At this critical moment, LV Haotian saw Zhuowen put away the death candle and disappear into the cave. LV Haotian's whole body trembled, and he became sluggish for a moment. Although it was only for a moment, it caused the momentum he had accumulated with great difficulty to be broken in an instant. At the same time, the Rakshasa's attack arrived as expected. Boom! After LV Haotian came back to his senses, he could only hurriedly block it. However, he was still blasted back by the attack and vomited blood. Bastard! Chapter 2385. A huge Harvest Luo Sha's eyes were filled with fear. The purple halberd's might was vast and mighty, giving him a life-threatening feeling. Luo Sha also used his full strength. His hands blasted out, and boundless black energy swept out like a black fog, blasting towards the purple halberd. Pucci! Unfortunately, the purple halberd was too terrifying. The moment it came into contact with Luo Sha's hands, it pierced through them. LV Haotian twisted his right hand, and Luo Sha's hands were instantly crushed into nothingness. Then, LV Haotian flicked again, and the purple halberd erupted with a dazzling purple light that pierced through Luo Sha. From bottom to top, Luo Sha's entire body was torn into pieces. The moment Luo Sha was dealt with, LV Haotian's face turned slightly pale. The blood at the corner of his mouth had already dripped onto his chest, dyeing it cherry red. This damn little bastard, if I catch up to him, I'll definitely let him taste the feeling of living a life worse than death. LV Haotian gloomily looked at the hole on the high platform. If it weren't for Zhuowen, he wouldn't have been bombarded twice by Luo Sha and ended up in such a sorry state. Luo Sha's attacks were not light. Although LV Haotian's cultivation was high, his injuries were not light. However, LV Haotian had no intention of healing his injuries at all. Instead, he chased Zhuowen into the hole. Firstly, there must be a treasure in this hole. And secondly, he also wanted to get rid of Zhuowen as soon as possible. This time, he comprehended space-time divine ability, which was already a threat to him. Moreover, he was only at the 7th step of the void sky. If he allowed him to advance to the 8th step of the void sky, LV Haotian didn't know if he could kill him. Therefore, taking advantage of the fact that he hadn't grown up yet, it was best to strangle him in the cradle. However, the moment Elvi Hautian entered the hole, a terrifying black flame rushed over and instantly wrapped Elvi Hautian's entire body. Elvi Hautian's pupils shrank. Only then did he realize that there was a black candle standing behind the hole. Due to Elvi Hautian's approach, the candle flame immediately turned into a huge dragon and pounced towards Elvi Hautian. Elvi Hautian continued to stimulate the profound divine power to expel the surrounding black flames, and at the same time he continuously retreated. This black fire was truly strange. Once it came into contact with it, it seemed to be endless. No matter how Elvi Hautian used the profound life divine power, it was difficult to completely expel it. In the end, Lu Hautian spent an hour before he was barely able to get rid of the black flames on his body. His clothes were also burned full of holes by the black flames. Elvi Hautian's originally heavily injured body was now a bit worse because of the black fire. "Zhuowen, you little bastard. This old man and you are irreconcilable," Lu Hautian roared. How could he not know that the death candle was deliberately placed behind the hole by Zhuowen? Zhuowen's purpose was to wait for Lu Hautian to approach, catching him off guard and contaminating him with the black fire. If Lu Hautian was prepared, he would not be so embarrassed. Unfortunately, he subconsciously thought that the candle had been taken away by Zhuowen, so he was not prepared at all. Taking a deep breath, Elvi Hautian calmed down. He took a step with his right foot and rushed toward the hole. Another black fire rushed out and pounced on Elvi Hautian. At this moment, Elvi Hautian was already prepared, so the moment the black fire pounced on him, he immediately covered his body with the profound life divine power and used it to resist the black fire. Sure enough, the black fire was not contaminated by anything, so it was not that terrifying. Elvi Hautian also took a step forward and entered the hole. The power of the black fire was not simple. In just an instant, Elvi Hautian realized that his profound life divine power had been consumed by a lot. After entering the hole, Elvi Hautian originally planned to put away the death candle, but when he realized that the candle flame on the death candle was getting more and more terrifying, he could only give up on this plan. His injuries were serious, and the black fire consumed too much of his profound life divine power. If he forcefully put away the death candle, the success rate would be very low. With unwillingness in his heart, Elvi Hautian entered the hole and muttered in a low voice, "Let's take down Zhuowen first. This candle is not urgent." After entering the hole, Zhuowen realized that he had come to another world. This was a valley that was like a paradise. Inside, there were birds chirping and flowers fragrant, streams flowing gently, waterfalls flowing straight down, and clouds and mist lingering around. Above this fairyland-like valley, above the clouds, Zhuowen could feel an extremely rich medicinal fragrance. This medicinal fragrance filled the entire valley, causing people to feel relaxed and comfortable just by smelling it. Zhuowen jumped up and rushed towards the clouds in the valley. The clouds and mist above the valley were actually restrictions that blocked the divine sense. So even though Zhuowen's divine sense was powerful, he could not see what was above the clouds. Of course, when he smelled this medicinal fragrance, Zhuowen did not need to look to guess that what was above the clouds was most likely a divine pill. Furthermore, it was not a divine pill, and the quality of the divine pill would not be low either. The moment Zhuowen jumped into the clouds, he was completely shocked by the scenery above the clouds. The clouds and mist above were rolling like dragons, and within the rolling clouds and mist there were many colors. If one were to take a closer look, they would realize that these colorful clouds were not mist. Instead, they were divine pills of different colors. Such a large cloud was dyed with divine pills. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the number of divine pills above was. Zhuowen swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and his eyes turned red. After being stunned for a moment, he unceremoniously used his divine sense to form a giant hand and frantically collected the divine pills rolling above the clouds. He found that most of the divine pills here were level 3 and level 4 divine pills, followed by level 5 and level 6 divine pills, and there were fewer level 7 and level 8 divine pills. As for level 9 divine pills, Zhuowen did not find any. Zhuowen also knew that these naturally formed level 9 divine pills were much more powerful than those refined in the outside world. Therefore, level 9 divine pills were extremely rare in the divine pill secret realm. As for the life or death pill, it was even rarer. The divine pill secret realm had opened so many times, and this time it was rumored that it would appear, and it was not necessarily accurate. Zhuowen cleaned up for half an hour before he finally collected all the divine pills above the clouds into his spirit ring. He casually counted and found that the number of divine pills he collected this time was more than 10,000. Although most of them were relatively low-level divine pills, there was no lack of level 7 or level 8 divine pills. It could be said that Zhuowen's harvest this time was many times greater than his harvest in the previous month. After collecting these divine pills, Zhuowen looked left and right again. After confirming that there were indeed no extra divine pills, he slowly descended from the clouds. "Hey, I say, you should take back the candle of death now, right? I still have something to confirm." As soon as Zhuowen landed on the clouds, the tortoise's divine sense had already passed over. Previously, when Zhuowen placed the candle of death behind the cave, the tortoise was already very unhappy. Now that Zhuowen had obtained all the divine pills in this treasure land, the tortoise naturally wanted to propose to Zhuowen about the candle of death. "Don't worry, I'll go get it now." Zhuowen smiled slightly. Just as he was about to return, he saw a figure rushing over from the entrance of the valley. Chapter 2386. The pursuituan was no stranger to this figure. Wasn't this LV Haotian who chased after him? LV Haotian obviously noticed Zhuowen as well. He sneered and took a step forward, rushing straight towards Zhuowen. "Little bastard, I didn't expect you to be here. Today, I will cripple you." The moment LV Haotian saw Zhuowen, his eyes were bloodshot. Mysterious life, divine energy, circulated around his body, making him look like a terrifying beast. Zhuowen's eyes turned solemn. He immediately summoned the phagocytosis, and his sleeves bulged with divine energy. Although LV Haotian had suffered serious injuries, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. LV Haotian's strength was not weak. Even if he was injured, he was still stronger than Zhuowen. Bang! LV Haotian's fist landed on the phagocytosis, and Zhuowen couldn't help but retreat a few steps. Zhuowen's eyes lit up with joy. LV Haotian's strength was much weaker than before. If LV Haotian was at his peak, this punch would be enough to force Zhuowen back, making him vomit blood. But now, Zhuowen only retreated a few steps, and there wasn't even any serious injury on his body. LV Haotian also realized that his strength had weakened due to his injuries. He snorted coldly, waved his sleeve, and took out the purple halberd from his spirit ring. LV Haotian didn't hold back at all. He could see that his injuries were too serious, and his strength was severely damaged. But he was confident that even if he was seriously injured, he could still kill Zhuowen. Boom! Holding the purple halberd, LV Haotian's momentum was vast and mighty. His terrifying attacks were like a storm pouring down on Zhuowen. The purple halberd was like a rainbow piercing through the sun. It blasted on the phagocytosis. Suddenly, the space exploded, and the entire valley trembled. As for the clouds above the valley, they were sent flying by the force emitted by the purple halberd. It looked extremely strange and terrifying. On the other hand, Zhuowen's pupils shrank as a strong sense of danger stimulated his brain. When the purple halberd struck the devouring seal, Zhuowen felt as if a mountain was collapsing. He felt as if he was about to collapse. Pucci! Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood. The phagocytosis was actually blasted away. The purple halberd turned into a purple light, piercing through the phagocytosis and stabbed towards Zhuowen's vital parts. If Zhuo-wen were to be struck by this purple halberd, he would most likely lose half his life. Zhuo-wen was a little flustered. He took out one defensive divine artifact after another from his spirit ring. Most of the defensive divine artifacts were obtained from the spirit rings of the cultivators he had killed in the past. Now Zhuo-wen was also desperate. Even the phagocytosis was blasted away by LV Haotian's purple halberd. He could only use this method to try to block the purple halberd. Unfortunately, Zhuo-wen's method was obviously useless. The defensive divine artifacts he took out from his spirit ring were shattered into pieces by the purple halberd almost as soon as he took them out. Zhuo-wen sighed in his heart. Looking at the defensive divine artifacts being shattered one by one in front of him and the approaching purple halberd, he knew that if he didn't think of a way, he would be seriously injured by the purple halberd. He might even lose his life. At present, the only thing that could get rid of LV Haotian was Zhuo-wen's space-time wheel. However, it took a certain amount of time to activate the space-time wheel. Now that it was a critical moment, how could Zhuo-wen have the time to activate the space-time wheel? When the purple halberd smashed all the defensive divine artifacts in front of him, Zhuo-wen's heart was full of helplessness. The defensive divine artifacts in his spirit ring were basically polished, and there was nothing left to throw. Seeing that the purple halberd was about to hit his chest, Zhuo-wen gritted his teeth and took out the tortoise from his spirit ring. The tortoise's shell was hard. It was definitely the hardest thing Zhuo-wen had ever seen. His king's sword was not an ordinary object. It almost shattered the tortoise's shell. It could be seen that this tortoise was unusual. "Hey, I say, little brat, what are you doing? Do you want to use me as a shield?" The tortoise's 4 limbs were crawling. When it saw the sharp purple halberd, it couldn't help but cry out. Zhuo-wen didn't care about the tortoise's cries and threw it in front of him, blocking his path. At the same time, the purple halberd instantly blasted over, and the tortoise quickly shrank back into its shell. Ding! The clear and melodious sound was like pleasant music that continuously resounded, and waves of curses and cries of pain came from within the tortoise shell. LV Haotian's pupils shrank. Looking at the tortoise shell that inexplicably blocked in front of him, he was surprised that the tortoise's shell was so hard. Taking advantage of the moment when the purple halberd was blocked by the tortoise shell, Zhuo-wen waved his sleeve and summoned the space-time wheel. He stepped on it and activated the space-time wheel. Whoosh! In just an instant, the space-time force wrapped the entire space-time wheel, including Zhuo-wen. Then, Zhuo-wen turned into a stream of light and quickly rushed out of the valley. Of course, before he left, Zhuo-wen took back the tortoise as well. "Don't even think about leaving." LV Haotian coldly snorted, put away the purple halberd, and chased after him. Zhuo-wen looked at LV Haotian, who was firmly following behind him, and cursed in his heart. He was shocked that LV Haotian's speed was so fast. However, Zhuo-wen was relieved that the space-time wheel's speed was indeed fast. Although LV Haotian was firmly following behind, Zhuo-wen found that the distance between him and LV Haotian was constantly increasing. In terms of speed, LV Haotian, a Life Enlightenment Realm cultivator, was still much slower than the space-time wheel. "We're almost at the exit. If you plan to get the death candle, quickly prepare your saliva," Zhuo-wen quickly said, holding the tortoise in his hand. At this moment, the tortoise was already dizzy from the purple halberd's attack and had yet to recover. Now that it was reminded by Zhuo-wen, it shook its head to sober itself up. When Zhuo-wen came to the entrance of the cave, he immediately stopped. The tortoise spat out its saliva and weakened the death candle's flame by 90%. Zhuo-wen's eyes were sharp and his hands were quick, and he grabbed the death candle in his hand. Boom! Zhuo-wen's delay allowed LV Haotian, who was behind him, to immediately catch up. The purple halberd turned into a terrifying purple shadow, cut through the space, and shot toward Zhuo-wen's back. Zhuo-wen took a deep breath, grabbed the tortoise that had just spat out its saliva, and used it as a shield again without hesitation. God-damned Zhuo-wen, The tortoise just said such a sentence and immediately retracted its head into the tortoise shell. It could only helplessly endure LV Haotian's attack again. Boom! The tortoise cursed in pain and Zhuowen groaned. His right hand that was holding the tortoise was blasted into a bloody mist by the terrifying force. Chapter 2387. Death Valley-grabbing the turtle. Zhuowen activated the space-time wheel and left the cave with a swoosh. LV Haotian rushed out from behind with a gloomy look in his eyes and chased after Zhuowen. When Zhuowen and LV Haotian rushed out of the cave, it immediately attracted the attention of the cultivators who were still watching outside. It's that Zhuowen. He was actually not killed by LV Haotian in there. This kid is not simple. Didn't you see the flying divine tool under his feet? That speed is so fast that even LV Haotian can't catch up. That's right. LV Haotian is a life enlightenment realm expert. His speed far surpasses that of cultivators below the void sky 9 steps. This kid's cultivation is not high, but he actually relied on that flying divine tool to make LV Haotian unable to catch up. It can be seen how terrifying and fast this flying divine tool is. After Zhuowen and LV Haotian left, the voices of discussion surged like a tide. Not long after, a figure came back from the distance. Everyone looked and found that it was LV Haotian with a gloomy face. Obviously, LV Haotian's pursuit of Zhuowen was a failure. LV Haotian was also quite depressed. He didn't expect that Zhuowen actually had such a powerful flying divine tool. He was actually able to shake him off. That bastard only went in for half an hour. There should be more treasures in this treasure land. LV Haotian once again rushed into the cave, hoping to find something good inside. Unfortunately, when he came out again, his face was even uglier. There was indeed a different world inside the cave, but there were no divine pills he wanted inside. Apart from the valley, there was nothing else. How could LV Haotian not know that the real good things inside should have all been plundered by Zhuowen? Zhuowen rode the space-time wheel and sped all the way out of the Gobi Desert. He came to a lush forest. He stopped on the branch of a huge towering tree and breathed a sigh of relief. His whole back was pressed against the thick and huge trunk, and the space-time wheel was also put away by him. The turtle was lying on the branch and slowly stretched out its head. Judging from its movements, the turtle was obviously still dizzy. Bastard, you bastard. You used me as a shield twice. You'll be struck by lightning one day. The tortoise roared at Zhuowen indignantly. Zhuowen, however, was noncommittal and said with a smile, "Speaking of which, I have to thank you. If you didn't help me, I wouldn't be able to escape so easily." With that, Zhuowen solemnly nodded at the turtle. Although Zhuowen didn't trust this turtle too much. After all, this turtle helped him block 2 fatal attacks. So Zhuowen was still grateful to this turtle from the bottom of his heart. Seeing Zhuowen's good attitude, the turtle didn't continue to flare up. Instead, it said with a little pride, "Of course, you don't know who this turtle master is." Back then, the turtle realized that it might have spilled the beans and quickly closed its mouth. Then it looked at Zhuowen and said, "The candle of death is with you, right? Take out the candle of death. I have a use for it." Zhuowen nodded, took out the candle of death, and put it in front of the turtle. After the candle of death was put down, the extinguished candle flame reignited, and a black flame turned into a ferocious head, rushing towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen hastily retreated, but the tortoise reacted quickly and stood in front of Zhuowen. It spat out a mouthful of water and blocked the candle flame. "You are Zhuowen, right? I need your help." The turtle's eyes were serious, and it turned to Zhuowen and said, "What do you need my help with?" Zhuowen was a little confused. It was the first time he had seen the candle of death, and the turtle had such a serious expression when it saw the candle of death, as if something ominous was about to happen. The tortoise sighed softly and said, "I can see that your divine sense is very powerful. Can you give me a hand and combine our divine senses?" Then we will enter the flame of the candle of death together and see what is happening in Death Valley. Death Valley? What is that place? Zhuowen asked in surprise. The turtle didn't hide anything and said, Death Valley is the core area of the divine Pill Secret Realm, and it is also the most dangerous place. Even a cultivator who has reached the 9 steps of the Void Sky Realm has a high chance of dying in Death Valley. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. The Death Valley mentioned by the turtle should be the core area of the divine Pill Secret Realm mentioned by the second elder. It was also the place where the life or death pill appeared. However, Zhuowen didn't expect that the core area of the divine Pill Secret Realm was called Death Valley. This candle of death is something from Death Valley? Why would it appear outside? Zhuowen quickly thought of the candle of death. Your guess is right. The candle of death is indeed from Death Valley, and the Rakshasa I told you about is also a creature from Death Valley. I don't know why the Rakshasa and the candle of death appeared outside, so I wanted to investigate the candle of death, hoping to see what happened inside. The turtle nodded and said, Hearing this, although Zhuowen was still a little vigilant in his heart, he actually believed it a little. This candle of death was indeed a little strange, and it didn't fit in with the environment outside, and the Rakshasa was the same. I know that you suspect me. However, don't worry. I have not deceived you in this matter. If I have deceived you in the slightest, the heavenly Tao will send down lightning punishment and directly annihilate me. The turtle saw Zhuowen's hesitation and hurriedly swore an oath to the heavenly Tao. Zhuowen nodded and said, If that's the case, then I will listen to you. But if I find any danger, I will immediately withdraw my divine sense. Don't worry, there won't be any danger this time. I just want to see what happened in Death Valley, that's all. The turtle shrugged and said, Let's begin now. Place your divine sense on my turtle shell, and then my divine sense will guide you, the turtle said again. Zhuowen was a straightforward person. As soon as the tortoise finished speaking, he extended his consciousness and landed it on the tortoise shell. Soon after, he discovered that another cold consciousness swept out from the tortoise shell and immediately began to combine with his own. Zhuowen knew that this divine sense should belong to the turtle, so he didn't resist. Not long after, Zhuowen and the tortoise's divine sense completely fused together. Moreover, Zhuowen discovered that the tortoise's divine sense was extremely cold. It was like a block of ice that would never melt. When the two's divine senses combined, the turtle controlled the divine sense to approach the candle of death, and very soon, it poured into the flame of the candle of death. Zhuowen frowned slightly. When his divine sense combined with the turtle entered the candle of death, he felt a burning sensation. Chapter 2388. Big Black Hand. Fortunately, the turtle's divine sense gave him a cool feeling, which dispelled most of the burning sensation. As his divine sense continued to penetrate deeper into the death candle, Zhuowen saw the raging black flames, which were becoming more and more vigorous, turning into a boundless sea of fire. Inside the vigorous black flames, Zhuowen's eyes became confused. Then he saw the outline of an image appear in the flickering black flames. The image was blurry at first, but as the black flames became more vigorous, the image became clearer. Inside the black flames, Zhuowen saw a black valley covered in black fog. The mountain range surrounding the valley was not the usual black, but a black that was as translucent as black jade. In the center of the black valley, there was an altar. Around the altar stood 9,998 black candles, each of them a foot long. Each of the black candles was burning with black flames. The death candle. Zhuowen looked at the 9,998 black candles in a circle, and his pupil shrank, and he couldn't help but mutter to himself, Sure enough, it's missing a death candle. That Rakshasa really escaped from the Death Valley. The turtle's voice also sounded. Zhuowen could hear the helplessness and sigh in the turtle's voice, and there was also a trace of worry and fear. What is this altar? Zhuowen asked in a deep voice. The tortoise let out a light sigh and said, "It's the seal used to suppress the Rakshasa king. Although I don't know how the Rakshasa king managed to take away the death candle and escape from the Death Valley. I know that if this continues, the Rakshasa king might break out of the seal. At that time, everyone in the divine Pill's secret realm might die." Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He had heard from the turtle that the Rakshasa king was the king of all Rakshasa kings. Its strength was terrifying, and it was said that at its peak it was at the two extremities of life and death. With such strength, it was impossible to find an existence comparable to the Rakshasa king in the entire 8 heavens. If a Tao-confirming expert did not appear, it would be difficult for others to suppress the Rakshasa king. "Who is it? How dare you spy on me?" Suddenly, an evil and powerful voice sounded. Zhuowen felt his mind explode, and the pain was unbearable as if needles were pricking him. "Hurry up and leave. This Rakshasa king has indeed awakened, damn it." The moment the evil voice sounded, the voice of the tortoise suddenly became filled with panic and fear. It quickly took Zhuowen's divine sense out of the death candle. "Since you're here, then stay." The evil voice resounded again, and then an illusory black hand suddenly extended from the altar and grabbed at the combined consciousness of Zhuowen and the tortoise. "Let's go!" The tortoise screamed and hurriedly retreated. Unfortunately, its speed was not as fast as the black hand. On the other hand, Zhuowen's gaze was calm and collected. His consciousness was much stronger than the turtle's, and he was also proficient in the soul-slain method. So Zhuowen was not afraid of the black hand that extended out. To put it bluntly, this black hand was also formed from divine sense, and Zhuowen's soul-slain was aimed at divine sense. Seeing the black hand reaching out, the tortoise revealed an expression of facing death. It knew that the divine sense it had separated would definitely not be able to escape this devil's grasp, so it simply planned to wait for death. Soul slain. Zhuowen's gaze was calm as he immediately used the soul-slain method. Immediately, his divine sense turned into a murderous aura that strangled towards the black hand. Boom! 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 The black hand obviously did not expect that this weak divine sense would dare to resist, and even more so, it did not expect that Zhuowen, who had used the soul-slain method, would have such a sharp divine sense. The black hand was instantly shattered. "Let's go!" The moment Zhuowen broke the black hand, he immediately retreated. When Zhuowen and the tortoise's divine sense withdrew from the candle of death at the same time, Zhuowen opened his eyes. His face was as pale as snow, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Although the battle of divine sense just now only happened in an instant, only Zhuowen, the person involved, knew the danger involved. Fortunately, the owner of the black hand did not care much about their divine sense, so it was only a casual attack that was broken by Zhuowen's soul-slain method. But even so, Zhuowen's divine sense was seriously injured. Of course, only a part of his divine sense was seriously injured. With Zhuowen's current powerful divine sense, he could quickly make up for the damaged divine sense. The tortoise opened its eyes, looked at Zhuowen strangely, and said, "Kid, you're not bad. You actually know divine sense method. It seems that I've underestimated you." "I was lucky to learn it," Zhuowen said indifferently. The tortoise looked at Zhuowen and knew that he was being perfunctory, but it didn't care. Instead, it said with a serious look, "I'm afraid I still need you to do me a favor, and that is to help me enter the Death Valley. We must put the candle of death back in its original position. Otherwise, when the Luosha king appears, the divine Pill's secret realm will be completely closed, and everyone will die at that time." Zhuowen's eyes flickered and said, "The Death Valley is the core area of the divine Pill's secret realm. I heard that even a Void Sky 9 Steps expert will die if they enter there. Aren't you just sending me to my death? You saw it just now. The Luosha king has already awakened. If we don't take action, you will also die, so it's better to take a risk." The tortoise said, Zhuowen fell into hesitation. There was no need to say how dangerous the Death Valley was. Originally, Zhuowen only wanted to enter the Divine Pill's secret realm to obtain a divine pill and break through to the next realm. He also didn't want to enter the Death Valley in the core area of the Divine Pill's secret realm. Now that the tortoise suddenly said this, he was naturally hesitant. I know that so many cultivators came here this time for the life or death pill, right? If you help me enter the Death Valley, I will help you obtain the life or death pill. That thing is definitely a supreme treasure for you cultivators. The tortoise was a little anxious, and it immediately mentioned the life or death pill. And you know where the life or death pill is? Zhuowen looked at the tortoise in shock. The tortoise said, I am a creature of the Divine Pill's secret realm, so I naturally know more about what happens in the Divine Pill's secret realm than you. Naturally, I know about the birth of the life or death pill, and I also know its specific location. As long as you help me, I will help you obtain the life or death pill. Zhuowen thought for a moment, then finally nodded and said, Okay, if you can really help me obtain the life or death pill, then I will not go back on my words and help you enter the Death Valley. Seeing that Zhuowen had agreed, the tortoise let out a sigh of relief. It looked at the direction of the core area of the Divine Pill's secret realm with a complicated expression and murmured in a low voice, I hope I can make it in time. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for me to explain to that old man. Zhuowen naturally heard the tortoise's murmur. Although he was curious about the old man, he didn't ask rashly. The tortoise's origin was not simple. In addition, this guy actually knew the location of the life or death pill, and this tortoise was very familiar with the things in the Death Valley. Zhuowen suspected that this tortoise might be related to the master of the Divine Pill's secret realm. Chapter 2389. Evil Spirit, follow me to the direction of Death Valley first. The distance from here to Death Valley is not short. Even with your flying divine tool, I'm afraid it will take 1 or 2 months. The turtle said. Zhuowen nodded and directly summoned the space-time wheel. He also summoned Xiaohe and let Xiaohe and the turtle drive the space-time wheel. He planned to use the remaining time to cultivate. The divine pills he had on him were extremely terrifying. He believed that so many divine pills were enough for him to cultivate for a long time. Moreover, he could also rely on the Taoist rhyme in these divine pills to repair the space-time injuries in his body. Time passed by minute by minute. 1.5 months later, the space-time will stopped in a mountain range. Zhuowen also woke up from his meditative state. It seems that the divine pills in this secret realm are quite magical. Not only did they repair all the space-time injuries in your body, but they also helped your cultivation reach the peak of the void sky 7th step in one fell swoop. Landing in the mountain range, Xiaohe sat on the hilt of the Thunderfire sword and looked up and down at the white-robed young man with a strong aura. Zhuowen smiled slightly. In the past 1.5 months, he had indeed gained a lot. Not only did his space-time injuries recover, but because he constantly absorbed the Taoist rhyme in the divine pills, his use of the space-time force was more flexible and powerful than before. Not only that, Zhuowen's consumption of the space-time divine ability was not as great as before. Moreover, he could now barely use the space-time divine ability twice. Of course, after using the space-time divine ability twice, Zhuowen would be exhausted and would be at the mercy of others. Unless he could now advance to the void sky 8th step, only then would he have some strength left after using the space-time divine ability twice. Zhuowen was now confident that if he faced Lu Haotian again, although he was no match for him, at least he had the ability to escape. Is the Death Valley in front? Zhuowen stood in the mountain range and looked into the distance. Tens of thousands of miles away, there was a rolling black fog that looked like a giant beast. Zhuowen knew that the Death Valley that the tortoise had mentioned was hidden within the rolling black fog. The tortoise nodded and said in a deep voice, "The Death Valley is not easy to enter. although I know the specific location of the life or death pill. Just to be on the safe side, you should enter the Death Valley with me first. After replenishing the death candle, I will help you obtain the life or death pill." Hearing this, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed dangerously. He coldly looked at the tortoise, and the latter also looked directly at Zhuowen without any hesitation, without any unnecessary explanation. "Are you worried that Rakshasa King will escape?" Zhuowen asked. "Yes, we should be the first to arrive at Death Valley, so we still have a lot of time. That Rakshasa King is definitely not a small matter. We have to get rid of him first, or else there will be endless trouble in the future." The turtle said seriously, "If that's the case, then let's do as you wish." Zhuowen nodded and did not raise any objections. The tortoise looked at Zhuowen strangely. It didn't expect that Zhuowen would suddenly become so straightforward. "Many thanks." The tortoise looked gratefully at Zhuowen, then pointed to the south of the black fog tens of thousands of miles away and said, "Let's go to that direction first, and then I will tell you the way to enter the Death Valley." Zhuowen nodded and pinched the tortoise, then turned into a stream of light and rushed toward the direction pointed by the tortoise. Landing at the periphery of the Death Valley, Zhuowen frowned slightly. He had not yet entered the Death Valley, but he could already feel a strong evil aura assaulting his face. This aura made Zhuowen uncomfortable all over, and it was very cold. "I can't see what's going on inside at all from here. Even my divine sense can only reach a range of 100 meters. Zhuowen frowned slightly. He had just tried to use his divine sense to enter the black fog, but he found that his divine sense was completely restricted. In this environment where the black fog lingered, he couldn't find the specific entrance to the Death Valley at all. "Wait for me." The tortoise's gaze was dignified. The restriction on its body had already been removed by Zhuowen, so it could now move freely. The tortoise floated outside the black fog, then stretched out its two small hands and quickly formed hand seals in the black fog, and finally spat out a mouthful of saliva. The dense black fog in front of them automatically parted to form a path, revealing a secluded path behind them. Both sides of the path were still covered in black fog, but this path extended all the way to the end with no end in sight. "Let's go in. This secret passage hasn't existed for long." The tortoise turned to look at Zhuowen and said. Zhuowen observed the path, hesitated for a moment, and then followed the tortoise into the secluded path. After walking on this path for about 2 hours, they finally walked out of the path, and what appeared in front of Zhuowen was indeed a valley. This valley was very large, and although the black fog was thinner than the outside world, there was still a lot of it, and Zhuowen's divine sense was also completely suppressed. "Zhuowen, that secluded path was set up by the master of the secret realm, so it is very safe, but once you enter the Death Valley, you have to be vigilant. In here, death follows you like a shadow," the tortoise reminded Zhuowen. Zhuowen nodded, and just as he was about to speak, a sense of crisis immediately crept into his heart, and then he subconsciously squatted down. Boom! About a foot above Zhuowen, a huge axe was flying towards him. It was a long-handled axe, and the handle was rusty bronze, and the axe head was broken. At first glance, the axe looked harmless, but Zhuowen's heart was thumping wildly. The axe smashed into the ground behind Zhuowen and immediately blasted open the ground. Countless gravel accompanied by a terrifying force scattered in all directions. Zhuowen only had time to take out the Emperor's sword to block in front of him, and was blasted back by the force. In midair, Zhuowen twisted his waist and lightly landed on the ground, and then he looked ahead with a serious gaze. Behind the huge long-handled axe, a huge figure slowly walked over. This figure was about 3 meters tall, which was more than half of Zhuowen's height. When Zhuowen saw the figure's appearance, his eyes narrowed, because this tall figure was not human, but a half-rotten corpse. The figure's head was almost full of rotten flesh, and its face was covered with white squirming maggots, and its 2 empty eye sockets were filled with bright blood, as if tears of blood were flowing from its eye sockets. This figure's body was covered in tattered clothes, like the clothes of a beggar.